Chapter 1017. Back then, when Feng Jixing was on a southern expedition against Iha country, he seized Yu City without shedding a single drop of blood. Afterwards he formed an encirclement around Xianxia city. Therefore Yu City was a lucky city that had not been affected by the flames of war for 10 years. But today it would not be so lucky again. The Blackstone Empire's army came in a menacing manner. The heroes of Celestial Pole continent that the Empire thought had already been defeated appeared once again. Man Sun's slightly weathered face was filled with helplessness. He lightly held the cold brick on the battlement and said, Why did they make a comeback? Didn't our scouts report half a year ago that the remnants of the Blackstone Empire's army had been defeated and fled back to their homeland? Now that it's like this, how are we going to resist? The young deputy general was at a loss. General Sun, then what should we do? What else can we do? Man Sun smiled bitterly. Attack for me. Once they get close to the city, use the magic crystal cannons to let them know how powerful we are. The Blackstone Empire has always been cruel and overbearing. If we let them easily capture Yu City, I'm afraid that the hundreds of thousands of civilians in the city will suffer for nothing. Yes, this subordinate understands. The deputy general cupped his fists. The doubt on his face was still not gone. But we only have less than 10,000 soldiers in Yu City. How can we resist them? General, look, the Blackstone Empire has at least 80,000 troops. Don't worry. Man Sun said softly, I've already sent dozens of letters to Xianxia City to request for reinforcements. As long as General Xiang Yu receives the news, he will definitely bring the 40,000 soldiers in Xianxia City as reinforcements. At that time, we won't have to worry about not being able to destroy this insignificant motley crew of tens of thousands. Yes, this subordinate will go past the order right now. In the next moment, the sound of a bugle horn rang. The entire Yu City entered a state of battle preparation. Numerous archers on the city walls pulled their bowstrings and pointed at the city below. The black muzzles of the magic crystal cannons were also pointed at the outside of the city, waiting for the enemy to enter their firing range. Although Yu City was a small city, its strategic position was very important. So it was also equipped with 20 light magic crystal cannons. Although it was not enough to resist Lu Yan's army, it was better than nothing. Below the city walls, the sound of hooves grew louder and louder. Countless Blackstone Empire cavalrymen were already in sight. The faces of the defenders on the city walls were all pale and they could barely breathe. Their hearts were beating incredibly fast, and an unprecedented battle was about to descend. Normally they would shout, "Protect Great Qin with our lives and blood," but now that the battle was right in front of them, all they could smell was the aura of death. Prepare for battle. Man Sun pulled out his sword and shouted loudly, "Protect my country, even if I die, it's still glorious." The magic crystal cannons began to fire, and mushroom clouds began to evaporate in the distance. Lu Yan didn't bring many dragon knights with him and he couldn't use battle spin in time, so he could only let the magic crystal cannons fire at him. Fortunately, there weren't many magic crystal cannons in Yu City, so not many people died. Shwa shwa. Giant dragons appeared in the sky and swooped down towards the city gate. The deputy general was greatly alarmed. General Sun, they want to directly break the door, this group of beasts. Man Sun brandished his sharp sword. Dream on. Aim at the dragon knights and use the dragon hunting crossbow to kill them. Damn this group of bastards, we should have equipped Yu City with god-slaying cannons. The deputy general was speechless and he actually didn't know how to reply. The materials required for god-slaying cannons were too harsh, and the entire military department of the empire only had a few god-slaying cannons. For a small city in the south like Yu City to want god-slaying cannons, it was simply a fantasy. Shwa shwa shwa. The dragon hunting crossbow shot out a giant net in the sky, but the dragon knights seemed to have expected it. They rode on their giant dragons and nimbly dodged the net. Following that, sword chi landed on the city walls, causing stone fragments to fly everywhere. There were even quite a few defending soldiers who were directly dismembered by the sword chi. If this continued, Yu City wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Man Sun's expression was grave and stern. Defend for me even if you die. Prepare the black beach oil. Once the door is broken, immediately seal the door with fire. Don't let their cavalry enter easily. He was very smart. War horses were afraid of fire, and once the black beach oil was poured on them, It would prevent the cavalry from entering the city. Although this way the people in the city wouldn't be able to leave, Manson didn't even think of leaving. If he lost Yu City, not to mention that he would have to go to the military court, just Xiangyu alone wouldn't spare his life. The entire Yu City quickly fell into a bitter battle, and the entire city was filled with smoke and fire. Shangyang City Military Hall. Xiangyu's face was ashen and he quietly sat on the commander's seat. The group of captaincy and kiliarchs were deathly pale and all of them were silent. In front of Xiangyu were dozens of letters and all of them had the same content. Yu City and Lai City are being attacked at the same time, what should we do? Xiangyu asked. Lu Yongchang said, this subordinate thinks that we should split our forces to provide assistance. How do we provide assistance? A captaincy stood up and said, that's easy for you to say, old general. Our Shangyang City only has a total of 40,000 soldiers. Should we leave 10,000 to defend the city, and split the remaining 30,000 into two groups to provide assistance? Using 15,000 soldiers to fight head-on against the 80,000 soldiers of the Blackstone Empire? Isn't that courting death? But we can't not save them. Lu Yongchang didn't get angry. He calmly said, once Yu City and Lai City fall, Shangyang City will be attacked from 3 sides. Captaincy laughed coldly, once we split our forces to provide assistance, we'll truly be consigned to eternal damnation. With 10,000 soldiers defending Shangyang City, isn't that equivalent to sending a fat piece of meat to the wolves? Lu Yongchang frowned. At the very least, if we assume the position of providing assistance, we can delay for a while and wait for reinforcements to arrive. Delay my ass. Captaincy cursed. In my opinion, we should order Yu City and Lai City to fight to the death and exhaust as many of the Blackstone Empire's soldiers as we can. That way Shangyang City will have a chance at victory. You. Lu Yongchang gritted his teeth. Stop quarreling. Xiangyu stood up and said, immediately send a letter to Lanyan City to request for reinforcements. In addition, which army is the closest to us? Lu Yongchang said, reporting to Duke Yu, it's the garrisons of Lingnan Province and Lingkong Province. Lingnan Province has 30,000 soldiers, while Lingkong Province has 50,000. However, they are all newly trained troops with ordinary equipment and supplies. There's no need to consider their battle strength. Therefore, the nearest regular army should be the 50,000 Songnan Army of Songnan Province, directly commanded by Su Jiantao. Forget it. Xiangyu said, send a letter to Su Jiantao directly and request for reinforcements. In addition, ask for reinforcements from Bailing City and Linghan City as well. The more the better. Then, what about Yu City and Lai City? Xiangyu slowly sat down and closed his eyes. His eyelashes could not help but tremble a few times as he said, our top priority is to defend Shangyang City. As long as Shangyang City is still there, we can hold the pass and prevent Lu Yan's army from advancing north. We can seal them in Mingshan Province. We cannot bring the flames of war to the north. Otherwise we will all be the sinners of the empire. Yes, this subordinate understands. All the generals saluted. In a sense, Xiangyu's words had pushed aside the clouds and moon in everyone's hearts. As a soldier, it was their duty to be loyal to the country and Xiangyu was doing so. At the same time, thousands of miles away, Lanyan City. In the commander's tent of the Imperial Army, Feng Jixing was leaning on the chair and dozing off. The food in the copper cauldron in front of him had been swept clean. It was rare for him to have a full meal, so he slept early. Buzz buzz buzz. A small sound fluttered in his ears and he frowned in his sleep. When he opened his eyes, he found a bee flying around in front of him and lingering as if it wanted to say something. Disturbing one's sleep, it should be sent to the afterlife. He opened his palm and divine power surged. The wind whirlpool quickly controlled the bee. Squeak squeak. The bee suddenly made an unusual sound. Instantly Feng Jixing was stunned. What's going on? The bee landed lightly on the table and shook its tail. It flapped its wings and its body emitted a fiery red glow. The next moment, beams of light shot out from its back and interwove in the air to form a moving image. It was the real-time image of Yu City and Licheng City being attacked in the distance. Ah! Feng Jixing sat up abruptly, his face pale. That's Licheng City and Yu City? Quick, let me see the enemy's flag. The bee could understand his words. After zooming in unsteadily, the flag of the cavalry was very obvious. It was a war flag with a bear's body, the flag of the Blackstone Empire. Damn it! Feng Jixing gritted his teeth. Is this the automatic defense mechanism left behind by Yu City? Licheng City and Yu City have been attacked. Where did this Blackstone Empire army come from? Damn it, quick, let me see how many soldiers they have. The bee squeaked. The bee in the faraway Mingshan province continued to fly higher. The camera overlooked the land and saw a black mass of soldiers from the Blackstone Empire. Feng Jixing couldn't help but gasp. The CTNN has a total of 100,000 soldiers. Damn it, why did so many soldiers suddenly appear? Xiangyu, that idiot, is in trouble. He nodded at the bee. Thank you, little fellow. I should go do what I have to do. After saying that, he grabbed his helmet and leaped out of the tent. Outside the tent, Zhang Wei was stunned. Commander, what's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry? Immediately send an order to all the generals stationed in the imperial capital. Gather at Zetian Palace for a meeting. Something big has happened. Yes. In Zetian Palace, Wei Chou, Situ Sin, Siyu, Qin Yan, Qin Lian and the others had already arrived. Meanwhile, Feng Jixing briefly explained the battle in Lingnan. Is the information accurate? Wei Chou asked. It's the information that the little fellows left behind by you gave me. Feng Jixing said, if you believe Yu's words, you should know whether it's accurate or not. Moreover, I also saw the scene of Lai City and Yu City being attacked. The situation is very tragic. I'm afraid that they won't be able to hold on for more than a few days. Once these two cities fall, Xiangyang City will be next. Xiangyu doesn't have many soldiers at his disposal. He definitely won't be able to hold on. Sir said, where did this Blackstone Empire army come from? Wei Chou muttered, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't return to the Blackstone Empire. Instead, they circled around the East Sea and came back. They laid dormant in the southern wastelands and then launched an attack. Situsen said, Xiangyu's soldiers are few. It's difficult for him to hold on alone. Moreover, they have the Dragon Cavalry Regiment. Xiangyu won't be able to hold on even more. We must send reinforcements to Xiangyang City as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the southern gate will be opened first. Su'er nodded. Before Her Highness went into seclusion, she said that General Feng can make decisions on his own if there are any major events. Right now, General Feng is the marshal of the three armies. He can give the order. Feng Jixing nodded. Send my order to Su Jiantao. Order him to lead 10,000 cavalry of the Tsangnan army as reinforcements. Immediately gather light cavalry in the imperial capital and bring magic crystal crossbows to Xiangyang City. The sooner the better. There's no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Zhuang Yan stood out from the crowd of generals and said, General Feng, in the face of national calamity, the national army is duty-bound. Zhuang Yan is willing to lead the national army to reinforce Lingnan. National army? Will it work? Feng Jixing expressed his doubt. Zhuang Yan said, it will definitely work. Good. Feng Jixing revealed a smile. Send Zhuang Yan as the vanguard and lead 200,000 national army to Lingnan to reinforce Xiangyang City. After that, I will personally lead 80,000 imperial soldiers to bring up the rear. All the defense of Lanyan City will be handed over to the Longdan army camp. Chapter 10:18. At night, the sky was filled with stars, shining brightly like an inverted jewel. In the south of the imperial capital, on the plains south of Lanyan City, a large number of carriages left the city in an orderly manner and headed straight for Lingnan. The supplies they escorted were nothing more than weapons, equipment and rations. Before the three armies moved, the rations went first. Within a day, Feng Jixing had already gathered a large number of rations and sent them to Lingnan. Under the starlight, Feng Jixing rode a white horse and stood alone on the slope. Looking at the endless flow of carriages in the distance, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. There was going to be a war again. He really didn't know when it would end. Thud, thud, thud. Amidst the sound of hooves, Wei Chou rode a fine horse and galloped over. He stood beside Feng Jixing and said, Lu Yan has long been a stray dog. Colluding with Nan Man and the remnants of Iha country to rebel is just a desperate counterattack. As long as we defeat their spirit in one battle, this rebel army will naturally collapse. General Feng doesn't have to worry too much. The night breeze blew and Feng Jixing's cloak fluttered. His handsome face had an indifferent smile. I'm afraid the one who is worried is not me but Lord Wei Chou? Wei Chou was stunned and smiled. Why do you say that? You are a dignified minister of war. Instead of mobilizing troops, you came to watch me transport rations. If this isn't worry, then what is it? Tell me, what are you worried about? Wei Chou touched his nose. As expected, I can't escape General Feng's discerning eyes. What I'm worried about is very simple. Zhuang Yan, Su Changjing, Lu Xiu and the others have ulterior motives. This time, mobilizing 200,000 soldiers to Lingnan to defend against the enemy may not be a good thing. Zhuang Yan's power is declining and is not as strong as before. If I were Zhuang Yan, I would definitely think of something else. The chaos in Lingnan is a great opportunity for them. Once Zhuang Yan returns to Lingnan, it will be like a dragon returning to the sea or a tiger returning to the mountain. I'm afraid that General Feng's 80,000 imperial guards will not be able to control him. Lord Wei Chou also thinks that Zhuang Yan will cause trouble? Feng Jixing asked with a smile. Yes, but I'm curious why General Feng can still smile? Why can't I laugh? Feng Jixing waved his hand and said, back then the Congress had 700,000 troops, which were like a mountain pressing down on Lanyan City, making it hard for us to breathe. But now it's much better. Zhuang Yan wants to go, let him go. It's just nice to return peace to the imperial capital. At least when you and Her Highness return, Lanyan City will still be Lanyan City, not a ruined city. As for the possibility of Zhuang Yan colluding with the rebels, I'm more than happy to hear that. As he spoke, Feng Jixing's eyes turned cold. I was just worrying about not having a chance to destroy Zhuang Yan's national army. This is a good opportunity. Lord Wei Chou, don't think that I only have 80,000 imperial soldiers. Have you forgotten the 50,000 Songnan army? That brat Su Jiantao is a peerless general talent. The 50,000 Songnan army in his hands is enough to match the 200,000 national army. As long as I join hands with Su Jiantao, not to mention one Zhuang Yan, even if he, Lu Yan and Qin Yi were tied together, I would not be afraid. Perhaps. Wei Chou was still somewhat worried. After all, he had followed Lin Muyu for a long time and his personality was more cautious. He was far from a general like Zhang Wei. At this time, there was another group of horses galloping over from the distance. The war horses these people rode were all very majestic, and the flags they carried did not belong to any of the armies of the empire. It was the flag of the supply department. Without needing to think, it was obvious who had come. The person in charge of the supply department of the empire had long been replaced by the person Lin Muyu trusted. It was Ding Shi. Under the starlight, the old General Ding Shi spurred his horse over in high spirits. After leaping onto the slope, he reined in his horse and said with a smile, "You guys really are here. I've been looking for you for a long time." "What is Commander Ding doing?" Feng Jixing asked with a smile. Ding Shi smiled awkwardly. "General Feng, don't call me Commander Ding, it's too much of an insult to me. You should call me Ding Shi." "All right, General Ding Shi." Feng Jixing had always respected Ding Shi. Ding Shi had a clear distinction between right and wrong. He had saved Qin Yin's life twice. For the entire Qin Empire, he was a benevolent man worthy of respect. Feng Jixing was no exception. He said, "General Ding Shi is responsible for all the logistics supplies this time." Ding Shi frowned. Logistics supplies are important, but the officials of the supply department can naturally arrange it well. "I have a request." "Oh? What request?" "There are 3,000 elite cavalry trained in the supply department. I ask General Feng to allow me to lead these 3,000 cavalry to accompany you and help General Feng to eliminate the hostile forces in Lingnan." "General Ding Shi is going to Lingnan?" Feng Jixing was surprised. "That's right." Ding Shi looked towards the south from afar and said, "Southern Ridge is my home. Not to mention, not only is there Lu Yan's Darkstone Empire's army in the Southern Ridge chaos this time, there's even Qin Yi's army of 100,000. I think Commander Feng ought to know that I was once the commander of this army, whereas, this army is like a child to me. I'm truly unable to bear to see all of them perish on the battlefield. If it's possible, I'm willing to privately persuade all the generals to bring this army that originally belonged to the empire back into the embrace of the empire." Ding Shi sighed with some regret. Many of them were once only children but followed the army from Lingnan to Dragon Island, and then wandered to the southern barbarians. In the blink of an eye, they have grown from children to adults, but it is difficult for them to return to their homeland. I don't want them to end up dying tragically. I asked General Feng to approve my request. Feng Jixing was slightly moved. He nodded and said, "This is human nature. General Dingxi, there is no need to say more. You are someone that Her Highness and you trust. I Feng Jixing also believe in you. Just follow me. What Dingxi does will not disappoint the world." "Yes, many thanks, General Feng." Dingxi cupped his fists and bowed. His heart was full of mixed feelings. What Dingxi does will not disappoint the world. These simple words revealed Feng Jixing's broad-mindedness. If the people in power of the Iha nation could have half of this broad-mindedness, the Iha nation would not have fallen to such a situation today. Feng Jixing looked up at the stars in the sky and suddenly sighed. He said lightly, "More than a month in the Shattered Cauldron world and a year in the Ancient Mystery Land. I don't know how you and Her Highness are doing in the Ancient Mystery Land. I hope they can return soon so we don't have to struggle like this. Now that the Blackstone Empire has invaded, I really don't know who will be next." Dingxi and Wei Chou were silent. They didn't know how to answer. Above the 9 heavens, far away through the layers of clouds, the morning light shone on a huge fortress in the wilderness. In front of the fortress, the words "Dragon City" were engraved on a huge rock. At this time, the gate of the city was wide open. Rows of cavalry servants came out of the city to protect the civilians as they went to the outside of the fortress to plant and do business. After the servants left the city, a group of people entered the fortress from outside the city. Almost all of them were injured and their faces were pale. They went straight to the Dragon City Hall without saying a word. Early in the morning, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin sat opposite each other, sipping tea and playing chess. "Let's go, General," Qin Yin chuckled. Lin Muyu's face was livid. Why didn't I think of this? Xiaoyin, let's take a step back, okay?" No, brother you've already taken a step back 7 or 8 times in one game. Look at you, you're too serious. You don't even have the mood to entertain yourself. Lin Muyu racked his brains for a solution. He was the one who taught Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi how to play chess. But now he was always killed by the 2 smart beauties. He was trapped in a cocoon of his own making. At this time a person floated over. It was Feng Zhanlin. He said respectfully, "Lin General, our people who went to explore the Star Spirit Valley have returned." "Oh, let them come back then." Lin Muyu's attention was still on the chessboard. Feng Zhanlin said, "Only a few servants came back. 1 divine king and 4 ultimate gods have all disappeared." "What?" Lin Muyu suddenly stood up and said in shock, "What happened? Why did they disappear?" The servant army brought back news that they only sent the divine state experts to the outside of the Star Spirit Valley and did not go in because there is a very strong poisonous gas in the Star Spirit Valley. There was no news of the 5 divine state experts after they entered the Star Spirit Valley. Only a few screams were heard half an hour later. The servant army tried to enter but was forced back by the poisonous gas. Many of them died. In my opinion, it's better to stop exploring the Star Spirit Valley. This area has been listed as a forbidden area in the 64 domains since more than 3,000 years ago. Qin Yin's beautiful eyes showed caution and said, "If we send more people, I'm afraid we'll die in vain." Lin Muyu took a deep breath and looked at Qin Yin. She said, "Xiaoyin, you know me the best. You know what I want to do." Qin Yin could not help but smile. "Are we really going?" "Yes, the Star Spirit Valley is one of the territories of the Dragon League. How can we allow there to be a forbidden area in our territory? I don't believe it. Let's make some preparations and choose a day to go to the Star Spirit Valley. We don't need too many people. You, me, Sister Xian, Shaoxi and Fuzhu will be enough. Fuzhu is a spiritual beast and can sense danger. It's the right choice to bring him along." Feng Zhanlin frowned and said, "There may be other dangers in the Star Spirit Valley. Why don't I lead a group of people and go with Lin General?" "No need. It's more important for you and Mochi Lin to guard Dragon City. Maybe the Tianluo Star region will come looking for trouble." "Yes, Lin General, you and the rest must be careful." "Yes, don't worry." The Star Spirit Valley was a valley in the southwest of Dragon City. It had always been classified as a forbidden area. There were no residents within 10 miles of the Star Spirit Valley. Even Divine Realm Masters were not willing to go there. After all, it was a dangerous place. However, this kind of place was often occupied by evil beasts like Fuzhu, killing mortals everywhere. Not to mention other things, 5 Divine Realm Masters of Dragon City had died in the Star Spirit Valley. Lin Muyu could not just stand by and watch. Otherwise he would not be able to be the leader for long. After discussing with Tang Xiaoxi and Xian, they hit it off. They did not even feel afraid. Instead they became excited. Chapter 10:19. After a night of traveling, they arrived at the territory of Star Spirit Valley at dawn the next day. Looking from afar, the mountains stood proudly in the clouds like giants. The cliffs were extremely steep and the rocks were overgrown with vegetation. Pine trees stretched out their arms from the rock layer in a welcoming posture, adding layers of green to the grayish-yellow rock mountains. Hundreds of flowers were in full bloom in the mountains, and the clusters of leaves were covered with dew. Whenever someone walked past, the dew would immediately drip down, making a quiet pitter-patter sound. There was no road in this mountain forest and no one knew how many years it had been since someone came here. As far as the eye could see, the steep mountain peaks formed a mountain range in a strange trajectory, like a giant dragon entrenched on the earth. The mist was dense and it was hard to see further away. The animals in the forest had also woken up from their sleep. The goshawk was circling in the sky, and the poisonous snake was slithering in the grass, making hissing sounds that made people's hair stand on end. The Star Spirit Valley was in the depths of the mountains and they were only at the edge of the valley. They were still at least 5 miles away from the entrance of the valley. Before entering the valley, the accompanying servant army had already turned pale. Their task was to send back a message, which was also what Feng Zhanlin and Mochi Lin had requested again and again. Lin Muyu strolled in the forest. She turned around and looked at the 500 servant army and said, "Why don't you camp here? We'll be able to see you when we come out after entering the valley." A servant army commander hurriedly said, "Alliance leader, please be careful. Then we will leave you here." "You guys be careful too." "Yes, thank you for your concern, Alliance leader." Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi smiled knowingly. Without the burden of the servant army, it was much easier to enter the valley. However, they were not in a hurry and continued to walk along the mountains towards the Star Spirit Valley. After all, this area was full of dangers and they had no idea what was inside. It was better to be cautious. As they got closer and closer to the valley entrance, the surrounding mist became thicker and it was a faint green mist. "Be careful." Xian's beautiful eyes were filled with wariness. She said, "This mist is poisonous. Use your inner breath. Don't breathe the air outside. Otherwise, the divine power in your body will be affected." Yes. Internal breath was a self-circulating ability of a powerhouse's body. Generally speaking, the higher one's cultivation was, the longer they could survive with their inner breath. It was also because of this ability that God-state experts could survive in the vacuum zone between the universes. Lin Muyu and the others began to circulate their internal energy to maintain their physical strength. At the same time, they drew their weapons and began to be on guard. "Do we need to use fire to disperse the fog?" Tang Xiaoxi asked. Xian shook her head. "There's no need to act rashly and alert the enemy. This valley is indeed strange. We'd better not let the thing in the valley know of our arrival." "Yes." Qin Yin suddenly blinked her flaming eyes and said, "Look over there." Everyone looked over and was surprised to see a big tree broken in the middle. The cut was very smooth and it seemed to have been cut by a sharp blade. Further away they could see sharp scratches on the grass, which should have been caused by sword qi or saber qi. Further away there were streaks of golden blood on the grass. The blood had long since solidified, but there was no trace of anyone. Lin Muyu walked forward, picked up the blood-stained grass with the blade of her sword and gently sniffed it. "What did you smell?" Tang Xiaoxi asked. "Oh." Lin Muyu shook her head. Tang Xiaoxi pouted. "Then why did you smell it?" "It's always like this in the movies." Just when Tang Xiaoxi wanted to beat him up, Xian stretched out her hand and pointed not far away. She said, "Look over there, there's a very big cave under the rock wall." Everyone looked over. Not only was there a cave, but there were also some blood-stained rags on the thorns. They could imagine that this was left behind by a person being dragged across the thorns. Furthermore, this person was not dead because there were scratch marks left behind by 5 fingers in the thorns. This God-state master was dragged by something and walked past here. Suddenly Lin Muyu and Qin Yin looked at each other and felt a chill in their hearts. What kind of thing could drag a immortal state master? And most likely it was eaten. Xian walked to the entrance of the cave, sniffed and slightly frowned. "What smell do you smell?" Lin Muyu asked. "The smell of a snake." "A snake?" Yes, it must be a snake. Xian said confidently, and it's a giant snake guarding this place. The immortal state masters who died in Dragon City are most likely the work of this snake. Lure it out and kill it, Lin Muyu said. How do we lure it out? It doesn't seem to want to come out. Xian said, it's because our aura is too strong so it doesn't want to come out and face us. That's why we have to force it out. Fuzhu, it's time for you to show your power. Fill the snake cave with water. Fill the snake cave? Fuzhu was speechless. So that's all I can do. As he spoke, he let out a low roar and pushed his palms forward. Instantly, a column of water sprayed into the cave. Since Fuzhu could control all the water in the world, the water in the forest naturally obeyed his command. Wisps of water from the canopy, leaves, and grass flew over as if summoned, turning into a torrent that flowed into the cave. The inside of the snake cave must be very large. Fuzhu filled the cave with water for nearly 10 minutes and it was finally full. The water was already overflowing from the entrance. Snakes can't stay underwater without breathing for a long time. It must be the same for this giant snake. Xian said confidently, we'd better retreat a little, lest we get scared when this beast rushes out. Lin Muyu agreed deeply. She pulled Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi back a little. Then she held the Xianyuan sword and secretly infused her divine power into the blade. She was ready for battle. Suddenly, a powerful aura awoke from the ground and surged. It's here. Lin Muyu was not afraid. Instead she was excited. Poof! Water splashed and a huge, ferocious head broke out of the water. It opened its mouth and tried to swallow Fuzhu. The giant snake's body was 1/2 meter thick, and its triangular head was like a giant dipper. When its upper and lower jaws were fully opened, it could swallow an adult in an instant. Beast, why do you have to bite me? Fuzhu roared and condensed a barrier of water between his palms. Poof! The barrier shattered under the snake's powerful bite, and Fuzhu was forced to take a few steps back. He was furious. If I don't kill you, my surname isn't Fuzhu. Rolling up his sleeves, Fuzhu dashed forward like an arrow, riding on the serpent's head and giving it a good beating. Every punch was accompanied by an icy glint. Fuzhu was a water-type ferocious beast, so the 7 to 8 punches were enough to make the serpent dizzy. However, before it could celebrate, a gust of cold wind blew behind it. Poof! Fuzhu fell into a thicket of thorns, and the thing that swept him away was the snake's tail. The tail was like a steel whip and it hurt. But Fuzhu's skin was thick and it only hurt but not hurt. Lin Muyu could not stand it anymore. She shouted, "Move aside, I'll finish it off." Like lightning, she used the fallen star steps and rushed toward the snake. The Xianyuan sword swept out with the chaos of the lives. Poof! The sword pierced through the snake's armor and tore a large hole in its abdomen. But that was not all. Lin Muyu stomped on the ground and her body shot out like an arrow. Her leg was filled with the power of the 3 luminaries' calamity, and it landed heavily on the snake's lower jaw. Crack! The force of the kick was so great that the snake's mouth slammed into each other, and 2 poisonous fangs flew out and broke. Ah! The snake let out a wail like a baby and it did not stop. Its body began to curl up like a pile of cow dung, and only its head was left bobbing up and down at Lin Muyu. Is it begging for mercy? Tang Xiaoxi was shocked. I think so. Lin Muyu was a little embarrassed to attack. Xian's beautiful eyes swept the surroundings and said, "Don't you feel that something is wrong?" "What's wrong?" "Many things are coming, that's right." Qin Yin looked at the grass in the distance and said, "It's a poisonous snake. Be careful, it's the Snake King and it's summoning poisonous snakes to help it." Sure enough, the grass and leaves in the surroundings constantly trembled. Poisonous snakes appeared in everyone's field of vision, and they were all poisonous snakes. It was common knowledge that there were many poisonous snakes deep in the mountains, and there were many poisonous snakes on the outskirts of the Star Spirit Valley. From afar there were thousands of them. Some of these poisonous snakes can spit venom. Lin Muyu knew more about poisonous insects and beasts and said, "Activate the Wall of Divinity and Shield of Vigor. Don't let the venom come into contact with you or you'll be in trouble." Then he looked at the Snake King coldly. He could not let it go this time. He raised his palm, and the invisible elephant spell activated automatically. Hum hum hum. The mountain range trembled and in the next moment, a huge boulder fell from the top of the cliff, smashing into the Serpent King's head with a loud bang. As the boulder shattered, the Serpent King howled in pain. Lin Muyu brandished her sword wildly in the air, and the sword qi rained down on the Serpent King's body like rain. The Serpent King's skin and flesh were lacerated, and finally, the sword stabbed heavily into the Serpent King's head. Around them, Qin Yin opened her flaming eyes, and a whirlwind of raging flames quickly burned the poisonous snakes to death. Tang Xiaoxi also set fire everywhere, while Shi Yan waved the Qi sword and beams of sword qi poured out. We can't stay here any longer. Lin Muyu looked at the Snake King's open stomach, and there were only 2 corpses inside, and said, "Let's go into the Astral Spirit Valley. Not all of our people were killed by the Snake King." Several figures flew into the Astral Spirit Valley. This Snake King was obviously just a guard, and the danger in the Astral Spirit Valley was no less than here. Chapter 10:20. The air was still enshrouded with green poisonous gas, which seemed to come from the flowers and trees in the valley. Fortunately, Lin Muyu and the others had already started to circulate their internal energy, so their strength would not be affected by the poison in the air. However, the fog was getting thicker and thicker, and it greatly interfered with their vision. The ground was covered with wet pebbles. Walking on the path in the valley, Lin Muyu frowned and suddenly bent down to touch the pebbles under her feet. Her expression was serious. "What's wrong, brother Yu?" Qin Yin asked while guarding him with her long sword. Shi Yan also said, "Did you see anything? These pebbles can't be so smooth if they haven't been washed by water for a long time." Lin Muyu turned over a pebble with certainty, sniffed at the bottom and said, "The soil has a very strong smell of underwater soil. Maybe it has just been soaked in water. This place must have been submerged." "But there is no water now." Tang Xiaoxi was shocked. "That's the strange thing." Lin Muyu thought hard and looked around and said, "What is controlling this place? Look, there is not a single body around. The 3 god state masters of Dragon City must have died, but their bodies are not here. Could it be that they were washed away by the water? Where does the water come from? That is also a problem." Lin Muyu looked at the thick fog in front of them and said, "Anyway, everyone should be careful. This place is too strange." Yes. Carrying the Xianyuan sword, Lin Muyu continued to move forward. She gently raised her palm, and a shapeless gust of warm wind blew forward, clearing away the fog and allowing the field of vision to become clearer. Meanwhile, Qin Yin had already opened her eyes of blazing light, and cautiously looked around. In terms of vision, no one could surpass the eyes of blazing light. This was something that was obvious. After walking for a few minutes, they still didn't see anyone, not even a bird or beast. It was really unusual. "It's so quiet that it's a little abnormal." Shi Yan frowned and said, "Why do I feel like we've stepped into a trap designed by someone else? No way, who would have thought that we would be able to come here?" Lin Muyu said. "Or maybe it's just my imagination." But at this moment, Qin Yin suddenly narrowed her flaming eyes and grabbed Lin Muyu's wrist that was holding the sword. She said, "Be careful, everyone. Something is coming. It seems to be waves energy. What is it?" Tang Xiaoxi also seemed to have heard something unusual. Woo 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 woo. A series of ghostly wails and howls came from all around. The grass swayed and even the dense fog was blown away. Suddenly, violent crashing sounds and the sound of flowing water came from all directions. Waves of water that were nearly 10 meters high surged from all directions. "What the hell is that?" Fuzhu was shocked. Lin Muyu could not help but say, "Fuzhu, use your water-splitting technique to defend against this unknown flood." "Yes, master." Fuzhu roared and slammed his palms down. Instantly, streams of air surged in all directions. This was the power of the water-splitting technique, capable of defending against any water in the world. However, the moment the water-splitting technique's power collided with the surrounding flood, it was as if it had fallen into a whirlpool and was devoured without a trace. The flood continued to sweep over. "It's useless?" Fuzhu was shocked. "Master, this is definitely not ordinary water. Otherwise, the little critter would have been able to control it. I can see that. Everyone protect yourselves." Lin Muyu flew behind Qin Yin and Shi Yan with her sword in hand. She formed a gourd wall to protect them while Tang Xiaoxi and Fuzhu condensed their divine energy to defend against the unknown flood. Bang bang bang. The cold flood crashed into everyone and penetrated through the gourd wall and the light wall formed by Shi Yan and Qin Yin, drenching everyone's clothes in an instant. This was definitely not water from the mortal world. It could actually ignore the energy barrier. In the blink of an eye, the 5 of them were submerged in the flood. What was worse was that a dense mass of black shadows surged towards them. Upon closer inspection, one could see that they were fish with fleshy wings. They swam in the water as if they were flying. Xian saw it clearly and hurriedly whispered, "It's the flying divine fishes, a kind of evil beast from another world. Be careful, the teeth of the flying divine fishes are very sharp and can bite through the god wall. This kind of flood is not ordinary water, and the ghost flood raised by the flying divine fishes can penetrate the defense of all things." "Then what should we do?" Tang Xiaoxi panicked. "Kill." The Qihua sword in Xian's hand shone with a cold light. "Kill them all, this is the only way. The flying spirit fish are very vengeful, they will chase down all the prey that the flying spirit fish failed to kill, until they are killed and eaten. We can only kill them all. If we can't kill them all, then we can only escape at least for a while." Lin Muyu understood. The Xianyuan sword in her hand burst with a cold light, and in an instant, dozens of fierce slashes burst out in the flood of ghosts. Immediately, the flood was chopped into whirlpools, and the flying fishes of ghosts and deities that were hit head-on were either shattered or seriously injured. It seemed that their defense was only average, but there were too many of them and they were densely packed together. Tang Xiaoxi brandished the Dig's spear, and the tip of the spear transformed into a fiery vortex that burned fiercely in the ghost flood, turning the flying fish into grilled fishes. As for Qin Yin and Xian, they used the same technique, the most chilling law of light martial arts. Xian's 7 slashes split strike kept waving, turning the flying spirit fish into sashimi. Only Fuzhu's law was different. He waved his arms and summoned icicles, but the effect was minimal. Instead, the flying fishes surged forward and surrounded Fuzhu's body, biting and tearing at him. The sound of their chewing through his protective aura was ear-piercing. In the blink of an eye, Fuzhu was covered in wounds and blood. "You can't use frost energy." Xian yelled, "Idiot, the flying spirit fish can control the coldest ghost flood. Why would they be afraid of your frost energy? They are too stupid." Lin Muyu turned around and struck out with the chaos of the common life, driving away all the flying spirit fish around Fuzhu, but she suddenly felt a sharp pain on her neck. One of the flying spirit fish had bitten her neck, and a crack had appeared on the god wall. She raised her hand and slapped the flying spirit fish to death. Looking at Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin, they were also in a dangerous situation. There were thousands of flying spirit fish and they were everywhere. If they continued to wreak havoc like this, they would eventually die of exhaustion. Qin Yin gritted her teeth and suddenly swung the sword of destruction, killing hundreds of flying spirit fish. She said, "We can't hold on like this for long. Let's fly to the sky." Tang Xiaoxi leaped up. "I'll lead the way." Zoosh. Tang Xiaoxi's body was wrapped in raging flames and she soared into the sky. Lin Muyu followed closely behind, but the moment they rushed out of the ghost flood, Lin Muyu's body suddenly trembled and her mind became a blur. An image lingered in her mind, and it was the image of Tang Xiaoxi's body in the sky, and her body was covered in blood. There were invisible wind blades flying around her and they were wind saws. Tang Xiaoxi's god wall had already been bitten by the flying spirit fish, and it was impossible for her to defend against the wind saws. This was the power of foresight. Lin Muyu accelerated and she grabbed Tang Xiaoxi's snow-white ankle and shouted, "It's dangerous in the sky, Xiaoxi, come down quickly." With a forceful pull and with Tang Xiaoxi's hesitation, she pulled Tang Xiaoxi down from the sky in an instant, and pulled her into her arms. But one after another, the flying spirit fish rushed out of the ghost flood, and flew straight like arrows towards the position where Tang Xiaoxi was just a moment ago. There were at least hundreds of flying spirit fish. At this time, there was a fluctuation in the air, and with a swoosh 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 sound, countless invisible wind saws flew across the sky, and in the blink of an eye hundreds of flying spirit fish were all turned into raw fish pieces. "Oh my god!" Tang Xiaoxi was so scared that her delicate body trembled. At that moment, there were at least hundreds of wind saws flying across the sky, and that kind of energy fluctuation could be felt. If it wasn't for Lin Muyu stopping them in time, perhaps Tang Xiaoxi would have been torn to pieces by now. With the wind saws in the sky and the ghost flood controlled by the flying spirit fish under their feet, it had already formed a feeling that there was no way out. Holding Tang Xiaoxi in her arms, Lin Muyu looked around and suddenly said, "We have to avoid the pursuit of the flying spirit fish as soon as possible." Let's go, there's a cave over there, we'll go in and seal the entrance and then we'll talk later. Everyone nodded and turned into streams of light, flying between the water and the sky. Behind them, the water surged. The ghost flood was a mass of water flowing in the air, and contained countless flying spirit fish. These fish were simply like Terminators, able to swim around with their living environment, hunting and killing. After Lin Muyu and the others flew away, the flying spirit fish went berserk, and with bloodshot eyes, they controlled the ghost flood to chase after them. Fortunately, the speed of the ghost flood was far slower than Lin Muyu and the others' flying speed. A fierce wind blew past and everyone entered a cave, while Lin Muyu was responsible for bringing up the rear. Seeing the ghost flood sweeping over from the distance, he hurriedly swung his sword upwards and slashed out a sword chi, immediately cutting off the top of the rock wall, falling to the ground with a loud rumble, and almost perfectly sealing the entrance of the cave. Turning around, he supported Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi's shoulders. The cave was dark and the two girls were scared out of their wits. Qin Yin worriedly said, "Can we stop it?" "King." Lin Muyu said with certainty, "The ghost flood can only penetrate our divine barrier, but it can't do anything to objects that originally exist in this world. Look at the ghost flood. When it comes to giant trees and rocks, it will automatically circle around them. The flying spirit fish are unwilling to waste any energy on inanimate objects." That being said, everyone was still very worried when they heard the rumbling sound of the flood of ghosts crashing into the stone door. Even Xian's beautiful eyes were wide open as she looked at Lin Muyu, and she could only hope that this kid's guess was right. Otherwise, as a blazing angel, her wisdom as a blazing angel would be ruined here, and in the end she would become food for the fishes in the primordial mystic realm. If this news spread out, people would definitely laugh their heads off. Chapter 1021. The roaring lasted for almost a minute. Finally, the flying fishes seemed to have given up. The sound of the flood gradually faded away. Did they give up? Tang Xiaoxi blinked her beautiful eyes and asked. Xian shook her head and said, "The flying fishes never give up. They will follow our scent and find us again. Now our best choice is to leave this place immediately and return to Dragon City. We will rely on the defensive domain castle to avoid this disaster. I think the flying fishes have never appeared in the prehistoric mystery land before. They must be under some kind of restriction that prevents them from leaving the Star Spirit Valley. Only by leaving this place will we be safe." Lin Muyu furrowed his brows and didn't say a word. He finally understood why the other three godly state experts of the Dragon League, including a deity king, were killed without a trace. It must have been the work of these flying fishes. They didn't even leave any bones behind after eating them. Is there really no way to deal with these beasts? Lin Muyu said unwillingly, "Sister Xian, we are gods. How can we be chased by a school of fishes? This is too embarrassing. Don't you want to kill them? Besides, I won't be able to get over being targeted by a group of fishes every day. I have to kill them and take revenge for those God Realm elites from the Dragon League." "There aren't many ways to kill the flying fishes." Xian nodded and said, "The ghost flood is not afraid of fire, nor is it afraid of frost, nor is it afraid of light and heat. Even the fire of gods cannot evaporate the ghost flood. The only way is to enter the ghost flood and kill all the flying fishes one sword at a time, leaving not a single one behind. That way the ghost flood will dissolve on its own and become a spiritual force between heaven and earth." "Kill them all. That's difficult." Lin Muyu thought of the scene just now and couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine. What are the flying godly fish's teeth made of? It can actually bite through divine walls. If I remember correctly, only divine artifacts can bite through divine walls, right? Qin Yin found it difficult to accept the fact that her defenses had been broken. Xian chuckled, "Don't underestimate the flying fishes. They are naturally demonic creatures and they are the bane of the god race. Every flying fish has a lifespan of at least 10,000 years. They are all living fossils. Their teeth have been cultivated over a long period of time, and their sharpness is not below that of a divine artifact. However, there's one thing that puzzles me." She suddenly muttered to herself and did not continue speaking. "What are you confused about?" Lin Muyu asked. Xian looked up at him and said, "Generally speaking, it's very difficult to form a ghost flood, and most of the flying fishes also sink into the sea to dominate. But the ghost flood on land is really too strange. Someone must be deliberately raising it. Domesticated." Lin Muyu was slightly startled. Someone deliberately raised these flying fishes in Ghost Flood? That's right. Otherwise, there's no other explanation. The Ghost Flood needs an extremely strong supply of spiritual energy to sustain itself. The spiritual energy in the deep sea is very strong, and it's the birthplace of the natural Ghost Flood. But there's no such place on land. Then, who is raising the Ghost Flood and the flying fishes, and what's their purpose? Lin Muyu was also confused. At this moment, Fuju's voice came from the depths of the cave. Master, come and take a look here, there's a situation. Lin Muyu raised the Xianyuan sword and entered the cave under the light of the divine sword. She saw Fuju circling around a rock that was about the height of a person. The rock was very strange, its shape seemed to be man-made. It stood in the middle of the cave in the shape of a cone. The surface of the rock was glowing faintly. Fuju was about to reach out to touch it, but Lin Muyu frowned and said, "Don't touch it." Why? Fuju was stunned. Lin Muyu smiled faintly and raised her hand to pick up a stone from the ground. Then she used the sharp end to touch the strange stone. Suddenly, sparks flew everywhere. The strange stone's surface was like a saw, and it quickly ground the stone in Lin Muyu's hand into powder. By God! Fuju frowned. He was a mythological beast that had lived for tens of thousands of years. But now, in front of Lin Muyu, Xian and the others, he was like a rookie who had just made his debut. This Star Spirit Valley was really a disgrace. Lin Muyu said softly, "There are countless small wind blades on the surface of this stone. The eyes can't see them, but they are enough to kill people. Fuju, if you continue to be so careless, you might die one day." Fuju grinned but did not say anything. Xian laughed. "Sister Xian, what are you laughing at?" Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were puzzled. Xian covered her mouth and smiled faintly. "I think I finally understand the principle behind those wind saws." "Oh? What do you mean?" Xian pointed at the stone in front of her. "Here, this is the reason for the wind saws. This kind of stone is very rare even in the divine realm. Qin, do you remember the radiant primordial stone of the Western divine realm? It's a rare stone that can greatly improve one's cultivation." "Yes, I remember. Primordial stones are the most primal crystallization of the power of laws, and also one of the strongest powers. The stone in front of us is not an ordinary stone, but a wind-type primordial stone. It contains the purest wind energy, and it is precisely because of the existence of this primordial stone that the wind saws are born in the air." As she spoke, Xian narrowed her beautiful eyes. "Moreover, there's more than one primordial stone here. Just one can't create hundreds of wind saws in the air in an instant. None of us should touch this primordial stone to avoid alerting the enemy." "Alerting the enemy? What do you mean?" Fuju was confused. Xian raised her brows. "Isn't it obvious? Someone is guarding this stellar spirit valley, and this primordial stone is one of his weapons. Perhaps those flying fishes are also his slaves. If we touch this primordial stone without permission, he will soon discover it. When he comes with the flying fishes, how are we going to defend ourselves?" Lin Muyu agreed deeply, but she still stared at the primordial stone for a long time. "This thing is really good. Sister Xian, if we solve the problem and I want this stone again, what should we do?" "It's simple." Xian smiled slightly. "I think the person guarding the Star Spirit Valley must know how to remove the defensive wind blades on the surface of the wind stones. He also knows how to activate the defensive power of the wind stones. We just need to catch this person." "Then what do we do now?" Tang Xiaoxi asked. Lin Muyu also smiled. "It's simple. We'll hide in the cave and wait for the guardian to walk into the trap. That's the best way. If we go out, we'll fall into their trap." "Yes, that's the best way." Xian pointed behind her. "Find a suitable hiding place and wait for the guardian to come. You cut off the rock wall to block the cave entrance. Are you sure it's okay? We'll alert the enemy if we do that. There's no other way. If we don't block the entrance, Gui Hong will definitely rush in and will die even faster." Xian was speechless. "Interesting. I can't remember how many years it's been since I've encountered such a desperate situation. But it's quite fun. If the guardian comes in later, we'll have to subdue him immediately. Otherwise, it'll ruin everything." "Yes." Everyone hid behind the rock and widened their eyes to look at the dark cave. After who knew how long, just when Lin Muyu was about to fall asleep, there was suddenly a clanking sound from outside the cave. Xian, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were stunned. Was that the sound of chiseling? The rock blocking the cave was at most half a meter thick. Even a heaven realm expert could shatter it with one palm. Why did this guardian want to chisel it open? They were full of doubts, but it was not suitable for them to say it out loud. Everyone remained silent. After chiseling for a full 2 hours, the cave door finally opened with a rumble. But what followed was a clanking sound. Sounded like iron hitting the stone floor. Lin Muyu squinted her eyes and looked over, only to see a white-haired old man walking in with a metal walking stick in his hand. His face was full of wrinkles and he did not look like a godly state expert at all. There was a green crystal lantern hanging on the walking stick and he walked in with a swaying posture. Was this the guardian? Isn't this a little too ridiculous? Lin Muyu even suspected that she could kill him with a sneeze. But just when Lin Muyu was in a frenzy of doubt, the familiar sound of water rang again. It was the flying fishes riding on the Guihong. The Guihong surged into the cave and danced around. Qin Yin and Xian widened their eyes and did not dare to say a word. The old man stopped and looked at the flying fishes dotingly. He chuckled and said, "Hi babies, are you hungry? Come, Grandpa will give you a delicious meal." As he spoke, he took off the crystal lamp on his walking stick and tilted it. A drop of blue liquid fell into the ghost flood with a whoosh. The entire ghost flood began to tremble violently, and the flying fish inside began to squeak as if they were very happy. Just as Xian had expected, someone was raising these flying fish. That drop of blue liquid should be the crystallization of Reiki, which could provide the real nutrients for the flying fish to survive. Lin Muyu turned around and saw the shock in Qin Yin and Xian's eyes. At this moment the old man walked into the cave with his walking stick and said, "Come, let this old man see who dares to barge into the secret room without permission. Flying fish demons, go in and search the entire cave. Kill them." The flying fish deity obeyed the order and immediately flew into the cave with its ghost flood. It instantly split into a dozen or so ghost floods and started searching the cave. If the flying spirit fish were to find him, he would be in deep trouble. If he did not act decisively, he would only suffer. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi had already raised their divine power and were planning to break through the void to grab the old man. However, they could not move at all. An invisible force had sealed off the area around them, and breaking through the void had become a dead end. Lin Muyu was the only one who let out a low growl. The power of the 4th level of the shapeless elephant skyrocketed, instantly breaking through the barrier. Her figure flashed and in the next moment she had already appeared behind the old man. She pressed the Xianyuan sword against his back and said calmly, "Don't move or I'll pierce your heart." The old man trembled. You can actually break through this old man's barrier? Chapter 1022. You'd better behave. Lin Muyu gently pushed her arm forward, and the Xianyuan sword's blade immediately pierced through the old man's robe and pressed tightly against his skin. A sharp pain quickly spread through his body. The old man was still leaning on his crutch, but he did not seem very nervous. He lowered his head and said softly, "I'm just an old man who was left behind in this forgotten place to guard the sacred site." Guard the sacred site? Xian floated over with a teasing smile on her face. How could an old man guarding the sacred site have the ability to rear so many flying fishes? Moreover, what's with this wind primordial stone? You know about the wind primordial stone? The old man frowned at Xian. Who are you people? Fuzhu raised his eyebrows. We are the masters of this place. This young hero is the leader of the Dragon League and also the master of Dragon City. The entire Raging Fire region is under our control. Your Astral Valley is in the Raging Fire region, so it is also under our control. The Dragon League? The Raging Fire region? The old man smiled and said, "The fighting in the secular world has nothing to do with this old man. If you want to fight for hegemony in this forgotten land, go ahead. Why do you have to come here to cause trouble?" Lin Muyu walked around the old man and stopped in front of him. Her sword was still pressed against his chest as she said, "A few of my subordinates went missing in the Star Spirit Valley, so I tracked them all the way here and found their skeletons. 3 of them were probably eaten by the flying fish. Your flying fish ate my people. Do you still want to stay out of this?" If they asked for it. The old man's face turned cold. The sacred site is a holy place left behind by the ancient gods. It contains the purest spiritual energy between heaven and earth. Your people want to steal the wind primordial stone, so they will die. It's not me who wants to kill them, it's the ancient gods who want to kill them. Who are the ancient gods you're talking about? Lin Muyu asked. The old man immediately cupped his hands towards the sky. His expression was filled with almost fanatical worship as he said, Pangdu the Great, Nuwa the Great, Fuxi the Great, the Zhou Rong clan, and so on. They have all lived here before. This sacred relic is a relic of the gods. No one is allowed to desecrate it. Qin Yin opened her eyes of flame and asked, So, this primordial wind stone is a killing weapon left by the ancient deities? The old man did not dare to face the blazing eyes of the blazing light. He quickly lowered his head and said, Who are you? Why do you have such terrifying eyes? Don't ask me who I am. Let me ask you first. Is it the will of the ancient gods to create wind saws to kill people? The old man frowned. It's not. But for tens of thousands of years, countless people have tried to steal the sacred relic in Star Spirit Valley. I have no cultivation at all. I can only rely on the primordial windstone and Gui Hong to fight against them. You're killing people here and you're still speaking with conviction. Lin Muyu looked at him coldly and said, You're old. Give me a reason not to kill you. Otherwise this Xianyuan sword will end your life. Xianyuan sword. The old man lowered his head to look at the golden image that appeared on the blade. It was the image of all things in the world. It was the image of farming, fishing, and the reproduction of all things. The righteous aura contained in this divine sword could be said to be the supreme of the three realms. How could he not recognize it? He could not help but become excited. It's a relic left behind by Emperor Fuxi the Great. It's a treasure of Emperor Fuxi the Great. You bastard, you must have stolen this Xianyuan sword from Star Spirit Valley thousands of years ago. It originally belonged to the sacred relic. The Xianyuan sword originally belonged to the sacred relic? Lin Muyu frowned. But I really didn't steal it. I only came to the ancient mystery realm a year ago. Nonsense, the mystery realm has long been forgotten by the world. No one can find the spatial entrance to the mystery realm and no one can come in. The old man was excited. It seemed that he had been guarding here all this time and did not know about Ziyao's havoc in the 64 domains. Xian smiled faintly. Old man, you said that this is a sacred relic that holds the relics of the gods. If that's the case, why don't you take us to see these relics? Don't even think about it. The old man spat. You thieves, don't even think about stealing the treasures of the sacred relic. Lin Muyu's arm lightly pushed forward. Instantly, the Xianyuan sword pierced through the old man's skin. Blood flowed down the blade. If you die, no one will guard the sacred relic and we can do whatever we want. Lin Muyu looked at him coldly. At the same time, she glanced at the ghost flood behind her. The flying fishes seemed to be waiting for orders. She smiled. Old man, don't try to use the flying fishes to attack us. I can kill you 10 times over before they attack. How could the old man not know that Lin Muyu's cultivation was not something he could match? He gritted his teeth. After a while he said, I can take you to see the treasures of the sacred relic, but each of you can only take one item. You must agree to my request. Otherwise, I will bring the secrets of the sacred relic to the underworld even if I die. Xian was pleased. All right, we agree to your condition. Then let's go. The old man turned around and walked out step by step with the support of his walking stick. Lin Muyu followed closely behind with the Xianyuan sword in hand, ready to take any necessary measures at any time. Amidst the sound of flowing water, the school of flying fishes did not seem to abandon them. They followed at a distance that was neither too close nor too far. The ghost flood flowed through the air like ribbons. The flying fishes widened their eyes and bared their teeth at Lin Muyu and the others. They wanted nothing more than to feast on them. Before they knew it, it was already late at night. The starry spirit valley was silent. Specks of starlight appeared in the distant forest like fireflies dancing in the air. The entire valley was very quiet, making one feel at peace. Clang, clang, clang. With every step the old man took, his walking stick would hit a rock, but this was unavoidable. Lin Muyu frowned. Intentionally or unintentionally, she counted the number of times the old man's walking stick hit the ground. At the 99th time the sound suddenly stopped. The old man stood in front of the stone wall under the mountain rock. He faintly sighed and said, Ancestral gods, forgive me for my incompetence. I failed to protect the treasures in the divine relic. As he spoke, he took a deep breath and said in a loud voice, Majestic mountain god, please grant me the way. After he finished speaking, a part of the stone wall in front of him suddenly protruded. It was 8 fist-sized stones, and the old man reached out and pressed one of them. A rumbling sound rang out, and then he pressed another one. After all 8 stones were pressed down in a certain order, the stone wall returned to normal. However, accompanied by a rumbling sound, the huge rock in front of him suddenly moved and a huge cave appeared. At the same time, a light blue curtain appeared in the air, as if some kind of boundary had been touched. The old man stepped into the cave. With a fierce look in his eyes, he shouted in a low voice, "The great mystery of heaven, help me eliminate the demon." Boom! A rock fell from above, smashing straight toward Lin Muyu's head. At the same time, a cold light shot out from the cave, separating Lin Muyu from the old man. "Careful!" Qin Yin shouted. Lin Muyu's reaction was extremely fast. She slid back to avoid the giant rock. At the same time, she waved the Xianyuan sword continuously, blocking all the mechanical arrows. But this was not the end. The rock under her feet suddenly collapsed. Lin Muyu hurriedly used her divine power to fly up, her face full of shock. In the blink of an eye, the hundreds of meters of rock under everyone's feet had turned into black holes. What kind of mechanical technique could have such an ability? Who is he? Qin Yin gritted her teeth. He must have deliberately lured us here and then tried to kill us. That's obvious. Lin Muyu raised her sword. Everyone be careful. The flying fish is about to arrive. Yes. Everyone nodded. At this time, the cave's door slowly opened again. Golden sealing runes condensed between the door and Lin Muyu's group, forming an indestructible barrier. The old man sat on a black chair. The chair moved with the wind and actually flew in the air. "Since you covet the sacred relic, then you deserve to die." The old man's gaze was fixed on the Xianyuan sword. "Heaven's will ordered me to guard the Xianyuan sword again. It must be Heaven's will that allowed you to return the Xianyuan sword to me." Lin Muyu looked at him from afar and said, "You keep saying that you're guarding the sacred remains and that it's the will of the heavens, but we haven't killed a single person in Stellar Spirit Valley, yet you've already killed a few of my subordinates. Shut up immediately. There's no such thing as a hypocrite in this world." The old man was slightly startled. He didn't think that Lin Muyu would say that about him. But he still laughed. "You little thieves want to steal the sacred relic treasure of Star Spirit Valley with your martial arts cultivation. You deserve to die here. There's no point in talking anymore. Take my attack." Lin Muyu frowned and stood in the air, waiting for the old man to make his move. But this old man didn't have any powerful cultivation. What kind of move could he make? Or mechanism? At this time, the ground suddenly rumbled and shook like an earthquake. A scorching flame power rose from the ground. Xian immediately said nervously, "Don't underestimate the enemy. This old man is definitely not that simple." "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded. She began to channel her divine power into the Xianyuan sword. No matter what it was, she would destroy it with one strike. At this moment, a gigantic creature slowly rose from the ground. It was a gigantic flying dragon, its body covered in black scales that gleamed with a glossy sheen. It had a huge head and a pair of crimson eyes stared fixedly at Lin Muyu. It waved its sharp claws slowly as though it was riding on clouds amidst the flames. Hover. Lin Muyu could see traces of friction between the primordial divine dragon's steel arms and body. She could even see screw-shaped wedges. This was a mechanical beast. Chapter 1023. Lin Muyu could not help but look at the old man in the distance. His brows were tightly knitted together. Who exactly was this old man? His cultivation level was not high, but his mastery of the mechanism technique was unparalleled. But before Lin Muyu had any time to think, the mechanical dragon swooped down and opened its mouth to spit out a ball of fire. Lin Muyu quickly opened his left palm and condensed the dragon blood battle shield in front of him. Boom! The flames swept across and burned Lin Muyu's arm. Damn, the flames spat out by the mechanical dragon were definitely not ordinary flames. They were comparable to Tang Xiaoxi's flame of the Master God. Her battle boots stepped on the air, creating 2 beautiful blue ripples. Lin Muyu had already used the momentum to teleport away from her original position. It was the same for this huge mechanical dragon. The Xianyuan sword shone brightly, and with the profound energy of the chaos of the lives, it struck directly at the mechanical dragon's weak spot. But before the sword landed, invisible blades suddenly appeared in the air and pounced at Lin Muyu. It was the wind saw. Lin Muyu turned pale with fright and quickly flipped his body in the air. At the same time he saw that the scales at the mechanical dragon's weak spot were flipped up, and there were holes underneath. The wind saw's energy shot out from these holes. The wind saw was very sharp and Lin Muyu was not willing to use the divine wall to challenge it. Behind him, the flying fish of the divine ghost and spirit squeaked. Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, Xian and Fuzhu were fighting the flying fish of the divine ghost and spirit again. But it couldn't last long and they had to get rid of this mechanical dragon as soon as possible. Lin Muyu leaped up and slashed down dozens of sword qi in the air. Since he couldn't fight in close combat he could only attack from afar. What he did not expect was for the mechanical dragon to roar and wave its claws, condensing a layer of flame qi around its body, blocking Lin Muyu's sword aura with a ping 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 sound. So powerful. Lin Muyu was shocked again but she didn't say anything. She raised her left arm and a blazing purple sun suddenly condensed. She used the star scripture's Howren strike and shouted, "Destroy!" Or, the mechanical dragon brandished its sharp claws and pounced over, instantly colliding with the purple sun. Boom! The night was as bright as day. The flames around the mechanical dragon's body were all destroyed by the purple sun. However, the temperature of the purple sun seemed to be slightly lower. It was actually unable to melt the dragon's head. It only burned the dragon into a fiery red color, as if it was a ferocious fire dragon. Good heavens, the metal used to create the mechanical dragon was definitely not ordinary metal. Could withstand extremely high temperatures. Inside the cave the old man watched the battle but his face was getting uglier and uglier. He had underestimated Lin Muyu and the others' strength. He did not expect them to be able to fight the mechanical dragon, and their speed was even fast enough to dodge the windsaw's multiple attacks. However, Lin Muyu couldn't say it. He didn't even dare to stay in the same position for more than a second. There were dozens of windsaws chasing after him. The mechanical dragon's attack was silent. Windsaws could fly out from every part of its body at any time to kill the opponent. This mechanical dragon was simply a killing machine, unlike ordinary mechanical beasts. Swoosh! Once again approaching the body of the mechanical dragon, the Xianyuan sword's light suddenly rose. Three glorious misfortune of all beings. With a loud bang, a dragon claw was forcefully chopped off by Lin Muyu. The price was that more than a dozen wind saws struck Lin Muyu's body at the same time. Immediately, the divine wall shone brightly and faintly showed signs of cracking. Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He hurriedly dodged. The wind saws were chasing after him as if he was locked on by a missile. An expert in the God the Arch realm couldn't even withstand a single blow from the mechanical dragon. No wonder no one dared to enter the forbidden area of Starry Spirit Valley for so many years. As Lin Muyu dodged, he raised his left hand and chanted, "All things in the world, listen to my command." Buzz! The mountain range in the distance suddenly trembled. In the next moment, the force of 1,000 caddies fell from the sky on the body of the mechanical dragon. Boom! The huge body of the mechanical dragon trembled. At the same time the wind saws chasing behind Lin Muyu decreased a lot. He immediately drew an arc in the sky and pounced again with his sword raised high. Facing this mechanical dragon even Lin Muyu had to go all out. The stars in the sky fell one after another. He instantly launched a fierce attack of the 7 glorious stars transformation. Roar! The mechanical dragon seemed to have sensed a fatal threat. He raised his head and looked at the millions of stars in the sky. Stop! The old man in the stone wall suddenly roared and said, "Enough, young hero, you have won. Flying fishes, ghostly deity, all of you stop fighting. We have lost." The old man really didn't want the mechanical dragon that he had painstakingly created to be destroyed. He could feel the destructive power contained in Lin Muyu's attack. Is that so? Lin Muyu suddenly shook his arm. Instantly, the millions of stars returned to heaven and earth like fireflies scattered on the ground. He looked straight at the old man and said, "Can you tell us the truth now?" The old man trembled and said, "Before I tell you the truth, you must first answer a question of mine." Just ask. Behind Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi and Xian also stopped fighting. They were all exhausted. The ghostly deity, flying fishes and Ghost Hong were too difficult to deal with. The old man's murky eyes looked at Lin Muyu and said, "Who taught you the domain-type mental cultivation method?" Domain-type mental cultivation method? Yes, all things in heaven and earth listen to my command. That's the art of formless elephant. Lin Muyu said in surprise, how did you know about it? Art of formless elephant, the old man shuddered. That's the secret art of great Emperor Fuxi. How did you learn it? Lin Muyu smiled brightly and rested the Xianyuan sword on his shoulder. Because I'm Fuxi's only disciple. The art of formless elephant was directly taught to me by him from the sky beyond heaven. Fuxi's disciple? The old man was shocked. You're Fuxi's disciple? What? How could this be fake? Lin Muyu opened his palm and with a low roar strands of divine power appeared and turned into layers of golden vines. They were filled with vitality. This was a strand of power that originated from Fuxi's divine power and had never been shown to others. The old man really believed it this time. He murmured, it's really the divine power of great Emperor Fuxi. You're really Fuxi's disciple. As he said this, he stumbled and fell from the chair and said, the great Emperor's servant. Mo clan's Luo Tianji greets you, Immortal. I've waited a long time for Immortal and the god's heavenly decree for many years. Lin Muyu floated down and said, you're really from the Mo clan. No wonder you have such remarkable power. Elder, please don't kneel first. It's too much for me. Put away your remarkable power first. It's already a mess here. Yes. Luo Tianji quickly twisted the handle of the chair. Immediately, the mechanical dragon swayed and sank into the ground. Then a rumbling sound came from underground. Pieces of intact rocks protruded out, and the ground returned to its original state. It was simply a wonderful work of art. Qin Yin and Xian looked at each other and smiled. Lin Muyu's identity as Fuxi's successor was quite useful. Luo Tianji then invited everyone into the sacred relic. The lamps in the secret chamber lit up one after another, making it as bright as day. At the same time, everyone saw the treasures in the sacred relic as well as the multiple protective mechanisms around each treasure. Although Luo Tianji's cultivation level was not high, he was well versed in the power of the laws of heaven and earth. The mechanisms he designed were enough to kill a god emperor expert. Senior, what's going on with that mechanical dragon? Why is it able to attack with the wind saw? Lin Muyu could not help but ask. Luo Tianji smiled faintly and said, it's because of the wind element raw stone. This dragon is called the Blame Dragon. I installed a wind element raw stone and a fire element raw stone in its body. Therefore it can breathe fire and gather wind on its own. It's omnipotent. For thousands of years, countless god-state experts have died under the claws of the Blame Dragon. However, there has never been a powerful expert like the Exalted Immortal who could threaten the life of the Blame Dragon. Don't call me Exalted Immortal. My name is Lin Muyu. Moreover, I'm just a junior. No, seniority cannot be confused. Luo Tianji cupped his fists and said, I once studied under Exalted Immortal Ji Jing. Exalted Immortal Ji Jing also learned the art of life and death from Emperor Fuxi. Therefore, according to seniority, I have to call you martial uncle. But senior? Lin Muyu was really not used to it. Qin Yin giggled and said, Brother, you don't make things difficult for him. Just call me martial uncle. It's just a title. This. Lin Muyu was speechless and said, all right then. Senior, you can call me whatever you want. Quick, tell me what's going on with this Star Spirit Valley. Luo Tianji nodded and said, Martial uncle, you might not know this, but the ancient mystery land is not a plane that originally existed. It's just a crack in the sky that was torn open during the Battle of the Gods. However, countless ancient gods have fallen in the ancient mystery land. Most of their belongings have been lost. Some of them have been preserved and sealed here. That's why it's called the Sacred Relic. Before Immortal Nuwa and Emperor Fuxi left, they set up the Sacred Relic and gave me eternal life. They ordered me to guard this place forever and wait for the Fated One. Seems like Martial Uncle is the Fated One. But Senior, you still haven't told me what's going on with the Sacred Relic. Don't get too excited. Luo Tianji couldn't help but laugh and said, there are 12 giant wind origin stones buried in the Sacred Relic. That's why they formed the wind saw in the ancient mystery land. It's used to restrict the lost gods and serve as a warning. Other than these 12 giant wind origin stones, there are also 24 medium-sized wind origin stones. The one inside the bewitching dragon is one of them. As for Gui Hong and the flying fishes, I met them by chance. That's why I nurtured them with the essence of heaven and earth to protect the sacred relic. It's indeed very effective. Even we almost died under the sharp teeth of these flying fishes, Xian said. Luo Tianji couldn't help but laugh awkwardly and said, Please don't blame me, Immortal Xian. Chapter 1024. Then did Niuhua and Fuxi leave behind a message? If the fated person comes, where should this sacred relic go? Lin Muyu asked a question that she was very concerned about. This? Luo Tianji pondered for a moment and said, I don't know either, but there are many rare treasures in this sacred relic. However, they are often coveted by people, and there were even a few times when they were almost stolen. Martial uncle, the Xianyuan sword in your hand was stolen from the sacred relic more than 1,000 years ago. Over the years, the dragon has chased away countless people who coveted it, but there are still some people with extraordinary cultivation who left this place alive. So, if martial uncle permits, please take the treasures in the sacred relic and my mission will be considered completed. Let me see the treasures first, how about it? Xian said with a smile. Yes, yes. Luo Tianji nodded respectfully. He shook the handle of the wheelchair in his hand, and the wheelchair immediately flew into the air. Luo Tianji held a strange compass in his hand and turned it towards the stone wall in front of him. Immediately, starlight fell on the stone wall, and as if something strange was summoned, the stone wall slowly trembled. The next moment, a pair of giant arms separated from the stone wall and stretched out, and on the arms was a dazzling jade zither. Wow! Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were instantly stunned. This jade zither was very exquisite and dazzling. They had never seen such an extraordinary 7-stringed zither in their lives. Moreover, it looked very antique and was obviously quite old. What is this? Lin Muyu asked. Luo Tianji said with a smile, This zither is called the Niuhua zither. It was made by goddess Niuhua using the trunk of a divine tree that was hundreds of millions of years old, and the strings were made from the whiskers of the deep-sea saint dragon. The Niuhua zither is indestructible, and when it is played, the sound it makes can be used to deliver all living beings from suffering, or it can be used to confuse people's minds, or it can be used to kill people invisibly. It all depends on the state of mind of the player. An item left behind by the exalted deity Niuhua. Lin Muyu frowned. I only remember that the treasure left behind by the exalted deity Niuhua is called the Niuhua stone. It was passed down when she mended the heavens. Luo Tianji couldn't help but laugh. Those are just legends passed down from generation to generation. Although there is such a thing as the Niuhua stone, there is no such magical power. In comparison, the Niuhua zither is the real holy object. It is comparable to the magical power of the Xianyuan sword. It is also one of the most precious treasures in the Star Spirit Valley. Lin Muyu smiled happily and rose into the air. She opened her hand and sucked the Niuhua zither over. When the zither landed in her hand, she could feel an honest and sincere aura. It was indeed a good treasure. Beside her, Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were already blurred. She had been proficient in zither and chess since she was young. Ever since the 7-stringed zither left behind by her mother, Su Yun, she had never played it again. But now that she saw the Niuhua zither, her heart was instantly stirred. When Lin Muyu saw this, she smiled and said, Senior Luo Tianji, can I give this Niuhua zither to someone else? Of course you can. All the treasures in the divine remains are for you, martial uncle. You have the right to do whatever you want with them. Very well. Lin Muyu turned and handed the Niuhua zither to her. She smiled and said, Xiao Yin, it belongs to you from now on. Qin Yin's heart was beating fast. She murmured, But brother Yu, this is a holy object of the divine remains. How can it be given away so casually? It can't be given away casually. But it is not given to you casually. It is given after careful consideration. Lin Muyu's words were appropriate. She knew how to conduct herself. Qin Yin smiled and picked up the Niuhua zither. Suddenly, there seemed to be a spiritual fluctuation between her and the Niuhua zither. She could not help but hang in the air in shock. The Niuhua zither shone brightly. Streaks of starlight flowed on the zither. It was as if it had finally found its true master after waiting for thousands of years. Xian smiled and said, Xin, congratulations. You have grasped another treasure. Mr. Haiyan, what do you mean? Little fool, the Niuhua zither is a treasure. Have you forgotten your special ability? The eyes of blazing light, the aura field, and the great silent sound. Using the Niuhua zither and the eyes of blazing light, you can launch the most powerful spatial vibration attack in the world. This is the legendary Great Silent Sound technique. I don't need to teach you this. You can master it. Qin Yin was stunned. She nodded and said, yes. Lin Muyu suddenly thought of the demon emperor Nushi in the forest of no return. Her weapon was also a zither. When she launched the sound attack, it was fatal. However, her aptitude was limited. Her godhood could not be compared to Qin Yin. Moreover, Qin Yin had the eyes of blazing light. She was a natural controller of the realm. Then, when she launched the sound attack, it would become the most powerful spatial law attack in the world, just like Xian said. Seeing that Qin Yin loved the Nuwa zither so much, Lin Muyu smiled and asked, Senior, do you have any other treasures? Time is of the essence. We cannot stay here for too long. Yes. Luo Tianji then spun the compass again. Suddenly, another huge arm extended from the rock wall. On it was an extremely dignified and exquisite armor. It was a deep red color and suffused with a faint blood-red glow. It was dignified and filled with a murderous aura. What is this? Lin Muyu liked it from the bottom of her heart. This is the Qiyu armor. Luo Tianji thought for a while and said, Legend has it that during the battle between the gods and demons, the Xianyuan sword could not cut through this Qiyu armor even after hundreds of slashes. It only left a few marks on it. The material of the Qiyu armor is still a mystery. It is said that it is a strange iron that grew from the bones of the demon god Qiyu. Then it was formed into this indestructible armor. I saw the scene when you fought with the Qiyu armor. If you wear the Qiyu armor, you will not be afraid of the Qiyu dragon's wind saw. Lin Muyu glanced at it. The Qiyu armor was divided into upper body armor, leg guards, knee guards, wrist guards, and so on. It was indeed a precious treasure, especially since she had just gained a foothold in the 64 domains and was bound to experience many battles between the gods in the future. One Qiyu armor was enough to give her an absolute advantage. Moreover, the design of this armor was for men, so it was not suitable for women like Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi. Hence she was the most suitable one. Hence she asked without hesitation, Can I have it? Of course. Luo Tianji couldn't help but smile. You're joking, martial uncle. This treasure was originally prepared for you. Good. Lin Muyu was overjoyed. Her weapon was the Xianyuan sword. As for armor, only the Qiyu armor could match the Xianyuan sword. It was just right. There had never been an armor that was truly to her liking. She took off the Qiyu armor and held it in her hands. It was not as heavy as she had imagined. It was indeed a treasure. After taking off the cloak and putting on the Qiyu armor, she put on the dark green cloak again. Suddenly her entire temperament changed. In addition to Lin Muyu's originally handsome and elegant appearance, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, and even Shi Yan were stunned. Just as Luo Tianji said, this Qiyu armor was simply tailor-made for Lin Muyu. What do you think, martial uncle? Luo Tianji asked. Fits me perfectly. Lin Muyu waved her arms in delight. She realized that the armor did not affect her movements at all. It was indeed a good treasure. It must be the existence of the Qiyu armor that allowed Qiyu to fight 10,000 rounds with the Yellow Emperor. After tying up the cloak, Lin Muyu asked, Then, what other treasures are there in the divine remains? Luo Tianji said, There are a total of 4 extremely rare treasures in the sacred remains. The Xianyuan sword, the Nuwa zither, and the Qiyu armor. The last one is a divine weapon known as the Hoi Bao. But this Hoi Bao was stolen from the sacred remains more than 7,000 years ago. After asking around for a long time, I finally found out that this Hoi Bao was hidden in the headquarters of the heaven-devouring realm. The heaven-swallowing domain? Lin Muyu frowned. Yes. Luo Tianji's face showed a trace of hatred. Back then, the people of the heaven-swallowing domain broke into the Star Spirit Valley and destroyed the other 2 mechanical beasts I painstakingly made. They severely injured the Zai Dragon, smashed the right hall of the divine remains, and stole the Hoi Bao. Until now, I have not been able to get it back. Martial uncle, it's all my fault for not guarding the sacred treasure left by the exalted immortals. No, it's not your fault. Lin Muyu waved her hand, a faint coldness in her eyes. You've tried your best. It's the people of the heaven-swallowing domain who are too strong. If it were someone else, the heaven-swallowing domain would have already destroyed the Star Spirit Valley. Luo Tianji took a deep breath and said, My greatest wish in this life is to take back the Xianyuan sword and the Hoi Bao. Now that the Xianyuan sword is in your hands, only the Hoi Bao is left. If I cannot take back the Hoi Bao, I, Luo Tianji, will carry the guilt of facing the exalted immortals for the rest of my life. Don't worry. Lin Muyu patted Luo Tianji's shoulder lightly and said, Senior Luo, I will naturally take back the Ho-E Bao from the heaven-swallowing domain. It may take some time, but I will definitely get it back. Yes, thank you, Uncle Master. Luo Tianji took another deep look at the great hall of the divine relic. There were still many treasures laid out inside. He said, Uncle Master, apart from the 4 great treasures, there are still many treasures in the divine relic. Although they are not as precious as the Xianyuan sword and the Nuwa zither, they are still treasures that can guard a region in the mortal world. Why don't Uncle Master take them all away? Lin Muyu was slightly taken aback. She said, Uncle Master and Jilung have guarded the divine relic for so many years. How can I bear to take them all away in one night? In my opinion, since the divine relic is a relic left behind by the exalted immortals, let it exist forever. I can't be greedy and take everything away. How about this? The Star Spirit Valley is a territory of Dragon City. I will send people to guard the periphery of the Star Spirit Valley and re-establish it as a forbidden area. With the strength of the entire Dragon City, we will guard the divine relic together with you. What do you think, Senior? Thank you, Uncle Master. Luo Tianji nodded and said, Then I have nothing to worry about. I can forge a second Jilung. All right. Lin Muyu's heart moved. Senior Luo, do you have any extra wind origin stones? Can you give me some and teach me how to use them? Luo Tianji could not help but smile. Since Uncle Master has asked, it is a small matter. I will naturally obey. Chapter 1025. The war was over and Star Spirit Valley was restored to its former tranquility and peace. A bonfire rose outside. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi set up a pot and started cooking fish soup. As for the fish, it was not the flying divine fish. Qin Yin caught it from the river not far away. The 2 beautiful girls stirred the firewood and were responsible for this not too sumptuous dinner. On the side, Lin Muyu and Luo Tianji sat on the ground and respectfully asked Luo Tianji about the principles of the wind stone. Luo Tianji held a medium-sized wind stone about the size of a person's arm and placed it on the ground. He said, Uncle, look. This is an ordinary stone that has not activated the power of the wind stone. It can be touched by human hands and there is no need to worry about being strangled by the wind blades. But if this is also the case, he suddenly opened his palm and a stream of vital energy seeped into the stone and quickly triggered the core of the stone. Suddenly, small wind blades floated around the stone. Swoosh! A leaf instantly turned into powder the moment it fell on the stone. It was clear how extraordinary the power of the wind stone was. Luo Tianji smiled and said, Every piece of raw stone has a core. You can activate and deactivate this core through external forces. As long as you have a little bit of power, you can understand it. Martial Uncle, you can try to deactivate the core of this raw stone. Oh. Lin Muyu nodded her head and opened her palm. Instantly, her supreme god force turned into rays of light that seeped into the stone, dissecting the veins and composition of the stone. When Lin Muyu's power entered the core, she instantly felt a tyrannical and violent energy field. That's right, this was the core of the wind origin stone, and the method to close it was very simple. She just had to cut off the energy field from the outside world. Lin Muyu left behind a stream of divine power to seal the energy field. Instantly, the raw stone became harmless to humans and animals. It is indeed simple. Ha, Uncle, you are smart. Luo Tianji also smiled. Lin Muyu asked again, Then, how do you use the wind stone to form the wind saw? This is more profound. Luo Tianji said, Uncle, do you understand the 8 trigrams? Yes, I know a thing or two. The 8 trigrams are divided into Qian, Kun, Sun, Zhen, Ken, Li, Zhen, and Dui, which reinforce and restrain each other. The operating principle of the wind raw stone is the same as the 8 trigrams. At least 8 wind raw stones are needed to facilitate the birth of the wind saw. The power of these 8 wind raw stones is endless and circulates. The stronger the power of the raw stones, the more powerful the wind saw will be. Oh, Senior, could you explain it in detail? Luo Tianji smiled slightly. He took out a half-burnt wooden stick from the pile of firewood. Soon after, he drew a diagram on the ground. In the blink of an eye, he had drawn out the positions of the 8 wind attribute raw stones. He said, The raw stones are all placed at the position of the formation's eye, and the position of the formation's center is the range where the wind saw can be produced. The 8 raw stones can be activated at the same time, and its lethality is exceptionally shocking. As he spoke, Luo Tianji raised his head and looked at Lin Muyu strangely. He smiled and asked, "Why does Martial Uncle want to learn the wind saw?" "I naturally have my own uses." Lin Muyu smiled mischievously. In her mind, however, the scene of countless dragon knights dancing in the air but falling one by one under the attack of the invisible wind saw appeared. What a moving scene. After a while the fish soup was made. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi had camped outside with Lin Muyu countless times over the years. They had long developed good culinary skills. Therefore, the fragrance of the fish soup had already spread in the Star Spirit Valley. "Senior." Qin Yin held a bowl of fish soup and respectfully offered it to Luo Tianji. Then she offered a piece of steamed bun that had already been roasted. Luo Tianji trembled as he received the food. His face was full of confusion and gratitude. Soon after, he wolfed down the food. The fish soup was delicious and the steamed bun was also very soft and delicious. He really did not know how many years it had been since he had eaten such delicious food. "Senior, slow down." Qin Yin could not bear to see it. Luo Tianji choked at once. "Senior." Qin Yin was stunned. Luo Tianji took another bite of the steamed bun. He looked at the ground and said, "Sigh. If for so many years, no one has ever been so nice to an old man like me. They only covet the treasures of the sacred remains." Lin Muyu smiled slightly. "In the future you can live in Dragon City. There is good food and drinks there. It is incomparably Xiaoyao." A trace of yearning flashed across Luo Tianji's eyes, but he quickly shook his head and said, "I have lived alone for so many years. I have long gotten used to it. My personality is also strange and I can't get along with anyone. It is better not to cause trouble for Martial Uncle. I will live in Star Spirit Valley. This is my home. I will live here until I die." "But this should not be your home." Lin Muyu thought for a while and said, "But I will respect Senior's wishes. You can live in Star Spirit Valley. I will send a few chefs from Dragon City for you. They will send food to Star Spirit Valley every 10 days so that you can eat and sleep well. When I find a way to leave the ancient mystery territory, I will bring you to the realm of the gods. The Eastern Heaven realm is so big you will have a foothold there." The realm of the gods? Luo Tianji's lips twitched. He said, "If that is really possible, Martial Uncle will give me a new lease on life." Eat first. We will talk after we are full." "Yes." While chewing on the soft steamed bun and tasting the delicious fish soup, Luo Tianji sat there with mixed feelings in his heart. Looking at Lin Muyu and the others, he was thinking how good it would be if he could have a few children like this. It would be 1,000,000 times better than guarding here for 10,000 years in the cold cave. On the side, Qin Yin, who had finished her meal, placed the Nuwa zither across her legs and lightly played the strings. Suddenly, the graceful Qin Yin's voice echoed in the valley. It was a song of autumn geese that had not been played for a long time. She would take it as a way to help everyone after the meal. The boundless heaven and earth, the majestic mountains and rivers, the cold moonlight shone into the battlefield, the rice river was green. The cool breeze was blowing, the empire's warriors went to the death of the nation, killing all the jackals and wolves. A life of frivolity who will soothe my wounds. The road home can no longer be seen, longing to wear out one's eyes, only to sigh at the high mountains and long rivers unhindered in all directions, forever defending the nation. What harm is there in my soul returning to the ends of the earth? Where will the warrior whose battle robe is broken be buried? Autumn geese, please bring my soul back to my hometown. After the song, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi's eyes were red. Lin Muyu also felt a little sour in her heart. She had left the empire for a year. How could she not miss the land where she lived for more than 10 years? She did not miss Feng Jixing, Chu Yao, Jin Xiaotang and the others who stayed there. This was something she had to do. Only with great power could she guard the continent forever. That night, Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and the others left Star Spirit Valley. After meeting Feng Zhanlin, Mochi Lin and the others, they told them everything about Star Spirit Valley. Dragon City sent 5 emperor gods and 20 divine kings to guard the periphery of Star Spirit Valley. They would take turns every half a month. The next day, Lin Muyu personally escorted the few chefs to Star Spirit Valley. He was most worried that the chefs would be eaten by the flying fish. That would be too evil. Fortunately, the Astral Spirit Valley was no longer what it used to be. The flying fish of the ghost and divine had already been restrained by Luo Tianji in the cave. All they had to do was catch wild beasts to feed them. A few god emperors stood guard outside the cave respectfully. When Lin Muyu brought chef and a large amount of vegetables and meat into the valley, Luo Tianji's dull eyes actually lit up a little. Life in Star Spirit Valley was really too boring. It was rare for it to be so lively. In this way, Luo Tianji could also focus on studying the Mahis sex mechanisms and forging the second dragon. On the third day, Lin Muyu and the others left Star Spirit Valley and returned to the Cave of Gods and Demons to continue cultivating. Shattered Cauldron Realm. The flames of war burned fiercely in the south. Yu City. This once prosperous city had become a wasteland. Lu Yen personally led an army of 80,000 soldiers to sweep through the city of Yu. The southern city wall of the city was almost razed to the ground. The army swept through the city and conquered it within 3 days as if they were crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. In the sky, the dragon riders circled. On the ground, the cavalry had already split into many groups and broke into the city to kill the scattered Qin Kingdom's army. Thud, thud, thud. The horses' hooves stepped on the spring soil. Surrounded by people, Lu Yen entered the city. The entire southern city wall had collapsed. There was mud and blood everywhere. Also, there were scattered purple Yinhua flags of the Qin Empire. Lord Commander. In the distance, a group of soldiers dragged a corpse over. One of the Kiliarchs said, "Lord Commander, we have found the corpse of Man Sun." He was known as General Sun. He was one of the few famous generals under Xianxia. It was this person who led less than 10,000 people to resist our attack for a whole 3 days. He's already dead? Lu Yen frowned. Yes, he died in the chaotic battle. Cut off his head to inspire the army. Yes. With one strike, Man Sun's head was pierced high up in the spear. The centurion holding the spear galloped on the streets of the city excitedly, shouting loudly, "Man Sun has died in battle. Why aren't the rest of the gang surrendering to us? Man Sun has died in battle. Why haven't the rest surrendered?" In the distance, a group of children stood in the spring rain. Their bodies were drenched, but they stared blankly at the head impaled on the spear. They didn't know what had happened. They only knew that someone had died and the city had been breached. "Commander, are we going to massacre the city?" a captaincy asked. Lu Yen frowned. "No, we don't have time to massacre the city. Let everyone eat and sleep for a night. Once they're well rested, we will attack Xiangyang City tomorrow. As long as we conquer Xiangyang City, this Mingshan province will belong to our Blackstone Empire." "Yes. Wait a moment." Lu Yen suddenly raised his arm and said, "The idiots of Yu City actually dared to try to stop a chariot. They must be punished. Send people to capture 5,000 civilians. Tonight we will kill them all in the central plaza. This will chill the morale of the army. This will make the dogs of the great Qin Empire not dare to look at the war flag of our Blackstone Empire in the eye." "Yes." Captain C thought for a moment and said, "Commander, our follow-up troops have arrived. They are the tens of thousands of Iha Nation's troops led by Qin Yi." What do that motley crew want to do?" "They want to enter the city to rest." "That's fine." Lu Yan's lips curled up. This Mingshan province was originally Qin Yi's territory. Tonight we will kill and punish them. Invite Qin Yi, Qin Huan, and the others to attend the ceremony. I want them to see how their people are slaughtered. Yes. Chapter 1026. It rained frequently in the south and at dusk, a fine drizzle poured down without end. When the veil of night descended, the soldiers of the Darkstone Empire lit up torches and illuminated the entire square of Yu City. On the square were a few thousand unarmed commoners of Yu City, and all of them had furious expressions as they cursed at the army of the Darkstone Empire. Thud, thud, thud. Amidst the clattering of hooves, a familiar flag appeared before everyone's eyes. It was the flag of the Iha Nation. Under Lu Yan's invitation, Qin Yi and Qin Huan had come to witness this massacre. Qin Yi was already very old. His originally grizzled hair was now completely white. His hair was so soft that even the pinewood hairpin couldn't hold it in. He didn't bring many people with him, only 2 captaincy and a dozen Kiliarchs. "Commander, be careful." A captaincy carefully helped Qin Yi down from his horse. When Qin Yi's boots landed on the rain, he staggered and almost lost his balance. "Father." Qin Huan hurriedly supported him, his face pale. "Commander, you're here." Lu Yen laughed heartily as he walked forward and cupped his hands. "We've been waiting for you for a long time." Qin Yi glanced at the commoners on the square and the elites of the sea and mountain army who were ready to go. He had already guessed what was going on and said, "Commander Lu Yan invited us here. I wonder what orders he has for us." No, there are no orders. Lu Yan waved his hand and smiled. "Yu City has obstructed us for many days. Now that it has been destroyed, my Blackstone Empire's soldiers have fought bravely. As their commander, I have to commend them. For true warriors, there is no reward more fitting than a massacre. These people of Yu City are stubborn and want to fight us to the death. I'll let them know the consequences of trying to stop a chariot. The Iha nation is our ally, so it's only natural that we come to watch. Commander, please tell us if there are any flaws in our ocean and mountain army's cavalry formation." As he spoke, Lu Yan raised his arm and shouted, "Prepare to charge." In the distance, armored cavalrymen mounted their horses. They raised their shields and spears, while the horses stomped their hooves as if they were anticipating a massacre. "Charge!" Lu Yan suddenly dropped his arm. The sound of hooves thundered, and the sharp edges of spears and swords gleamed coldly under the light of the fire, making people feel like they were in a harsh winter even though it was a spring day. Among the crowd, the commoners were in a state of panic. Suddenly, a man wearing a low-ranking civil official uniform rushed towards Qin Yi, Qin Huan and the others and shouted, "Great Commander, help! Commander-in-Chief, I'm an official of the Iha nation. I'm Zhang Jun from the rearguard commandery of Bailing City. Commander-in-Chief, save me. Young Prince, save me." It was as if Zhang Jun had seen a life-saving straw. He crazily led a group of people and charged towards Qin Yi, Qin Huan and the others. The Iha nation had once flourished and Qin Yi, the commander, would definitely be able to save his life. Unfortunately, Qin Yi turned his face away, unable to bear to see the scene before his eyes. "Back off." A group of shield-wielding heavy infantry used their shields to push Zhang Jun and the others away, and even brandished their broadswords in a frenzy. "Commander-in-Chief! Commander-in-Chief!" Despair began to pile up on Zhang Jun's face. Amidst a miserable howl, his left arm was chopped off by a heavy infantry and fresh blood splattered everywhere. After retreating several steps, his entire body trembled, and the sharp edge of a lance pierced through his chest. It was a black iron lance commonly used by the heavy cavalry of the Blackstone Empire. That heavy cavalry with sharp eyes and quick reflexes spurted his horse past Zhang Jun, grabbing the handle of the lance and pulling it out of Zhang Jun's chest. For a moment, blood and internal organs splattered everywhere. Plop. Zhang Jun weakly knelt on the ground, but his gaze remained fixed in the direction of Qin Yi and Qin Huan until he lay down perfectly straight, becoming a corpse that was gradually cooling down. Qin Yi looked at the dead Zhang Jun with a calm expression, seemingly without the slightest sorrow or joy. Meanwhile, Qin Huan clenched his fists tightly. How could a hot-blooded person like him endure this kind of torture? He clenched his teeth and said, "Commander Lu Yan, these commoners are only unarmed farmers and craftsmen. Why must you be so ruthless? Commander, please be lenient. Is Young Highness pleading for this group of rebels?" Lu Yan looked at him and faintly smiled. "Is that so? You can say that," Qin Huan said in a low voice. "Don't give me that." Lu Yan sneered. "Was Young Highness this kind of benevolence when you controlled half of the empire? I'm afraid not. As the saying goes, the merciful cannot command an army. Young Highness should understand such a simple truth. The people of the Qin Empire are like weeds on the ground, lowly and tenacious. If we don't uproot them now, they will soon take root and sprout, smelt iron and forge weapons, and become the enemy of my Blackstone Empire. Young Highness need not plead for leniency. I, Lu Yan, know what to do. But, don't say any more unless Young Highness wants to become one of them." Lu Yan waved his hand and smiled. "The Commander-in-Chief is an outstanding talent of Lingnan. Although I, Lu Yan, am ruthless, I still want to leave a bloodline for the Lingnan Qin family. I hope Young Highness knows what you should do and what you shouldn't do." Qin Huan was startled and didn't say anything else. Lu Yan was someone who would do what he said. He was not just an ordinary kind of ruthlessness. At this time, Lu Yan's advisor, Bailey Yen, walked forward in a black robe and respectfully cupped his hands at Qin Yi. "I am Bailey Yen, greeting the Commander-in-Chief of the Iha nation." Qin Yi nodded. "Mister, you don't have to be so courteous. If you have any orders, just say them. Then I won't beat around the bush." The Haitian army has been attacking Yu City for days and has suffered heavy casualties. The soldiers need rest, so I would like to ask the commander-in-chief to lead the Iha nation's army of 100,000 to open a path in front and attack Xiangyang City like lightning. If we can take Xiangyang City before Xiangyu is prepared, it will be a great achievement. Qin Yi's eyes couldn't help but turn cold. Mr. Bailey, are you planning to let the Iha nation's army attack Xiangyang City first? That's right. Bailey Yen smiled faintly, but you don't need to worry, Commander-in-Chief. The Blackstone Empire's army of 100,000 will be arriving soon. They will hold the line for you from the rear. If you can't take Xiangyang City, we will naturally take your place. Qin Yi's heart was filled with a myriad of emotions. He felt like he was being roasted over a fire. Bailey Yen wanted to use someone else to do his dirty work, but there was nothing he could do. He was being controlled at every step and had no control over himself. After a while, Qin Yi cupped his hands and said, I will solemnly obey the Commander-in-Chief. However, I hope that you can prepare all the provisions, weapons and war horses that the Iha nation needs. Don't worry, Commander-in-Chief. I will naturally prepare everything. The Haitian army will depart tomorrow morning, so I hope that you will immediately lead the army to attack. Speed is the most important thing in war. We cannot give Xiangyu too much time to prepare. Yes. Qin Yi's face was pale and his aged body was slightly stooped. He didn't even look half as imposing as the commander-in-chief of the Iha nation, Qin Yi. The sounds of fighting and the screams of misery gradually came to a stop. Just like that, the 5,000 citizens of Yu City had all become sacrifices to the butcher's knife. To the Blackstone Empire's army, which was known for their savagery and cruelty, this was a common occurrence. Given that they had sufficient provisions, it was already good enough that they didn't eat people. As for the faint sounds of women crying and the shouts of looting, they turned a deaf ear to them. Yu City was less than 100 kilometers away from Xiangyang City. Even infantry soldiers would be able to reach it in a day and a night. Qin Yi didn't know what the fate of the Iha nation's final army was, but at this moment he regretted it. He regretted killing his older brother Qin Jin and dividing the world into two. However, he only had one choice, and once he made it, there was no turning back. Qin Yi knew that neither he nor the Iha nation had a path of retreat, so he could only continue forward. Even if there was a steep cliff in front of him, he could only blame himself if he fell and his bones were crushed. At the east of Xiangyang City, the Darkstone Empire's army in the city streaked towards Xiangyang City in an endless stream, while the cavalry at the front had already set up camp less than 2.5 kilometers away from Xiangyang City. It was taboo for the cavalry at the front to advance rashly. However, this powerful army was led by the Darkstone Empire's dragon riders, Fu Yun. The few tens of dragon riders circling in the air were enough to make the imperial army of the Great Qin Empire in Xiangyang City tremble with fear. Xiangyu had given the order to close the gates and not engage in battle, to defend the city to the death and wait for reinforcements. Thus, Fu Yun could only wait for Lu Yan's army to join forces with him. After all, he wasn't that arrogant to attack Xiangyang City alone. Xiangyu and the others in the city weren't to be trifled with either. Which one of them hadn't fought in the wind and rain for close to a decade? At dusk, the entire Fu Yun's camp seemed to be dyed with a layer of blood. The dragon riders had already settled down in the camp, and an endless stream of supplies was being delivered from outside the camp. These were all supplies that had been plundered from nearby cities and villages, including food, livestock, and even living people. To the Blackstone army, living people were also a form of rations, and mobile rations at that. Report. The messenger rushed in. Lord Fu Yun, we've captured a spy. He claims to be from Lanyan City. Lanyan City? Fu Yun put down his chopsticks and said, Lanyan City is thousands of kilometers away from here. Have they already learned of the situation here? I don't know. This spy says he wants to see you, Lord Fu, and has brought an extremely important letter. Oh? Bring him in. It's Lord Fu. Not long after, a wretched-looking man with his hands tied behind his back walked in and immediately knelt on the ground. General, please don't kill me. I'm here to be a messenger. Messenger? Fu Yun couldn't help but laugh. There's actually such an ugly and cowardly messenger in this world? Men, bring him out and behead him. Wait, General, read the letter first. Bring the letter up. The letter was a kind of rice paper with a faint fragrance. In the world of scholars in Lanyan City, Many people would use this kind of rice paper made from special peachwood pulp. However, it was too expensive, so ordinary people couldn't afford it. A few lines of words were written densely on the rice paper. The title was Lord Commander of the Blackstone Empire Army, and the inscription was Generals of the Qin Empire Army. Fu Yun glanced at it and couldn't help but laugh. Zhuang Yan, Su Changjing, and Lu Xiu. Why aren't these people enjoying their lives in the imperial capital? Why are they working with the Blackstone Empire? Chapter 1027. The emissary said, Feng Jixing is arrogant and has repeatedly spoken rudely to the lords of the national army. This time the troops have entered Lingnan. I'm sure Feng Jixing wants to take this opportunity to get rid of all of you, so the national army doesn't plan to sit and wait for death. Instead, we've decided to cooperate with your army and work together from the inside and outside to eliminate Feng Jixing's 80,000 imperial guards in one fell swoop. In this way we can march straight in and kill all the remnants of the great Qin Empire. Fu Yun smiled and said, Then what do you need me to do? Get rid of Feng Jixing. The emissary knelt on one knee and said, The only people the national army is afraid of are Feng Jixing, Wei Chou, Chu Chu, Chu Yao, Sidusen, and other God-state warriors. We know that the Blackstone Empire has countless powerful warriors. Therefore we would like to ask for your help to eliminate these lackeys of the Qin Empire. Where are Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi? Fu Yun asked faintly. I really don't know. Humph. Fu Yun sneered and said, You have a good plan. Unfortunately, it is too wishful thinking. If Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi show up, how are we going to resist them? The emissary was shocked and said, General, go back and tell Zhuang Yan and Su Changjing that I can cooperate with them. As long as Feng Jixing, Wei Chou, and the others show up, the Blackstone Empire will naturally eliminate them. However, the terms of the cooperation must be changed. North Ridge can only give you Qihai Province and Yunzhong Province. As for Lanyan City and Wugu City, they will all belong to the Blackstone Empire. Yes. Yes, I will go back and report this. Yes. Fu Yun faintly smiled. As a sign of sincerity, I have a silver tiger seal here that can mobilize 3,000 troops of the Blackstone Empire. I'll give it to you. Have Zhuang Yan, Su Changjing, and the others write a joint letter to me to express their sincerity. In addition, I want all of their official seals to be handed over to me. Otherwise, there's no need to talk about any cooperation. Yes, yes. The emissary was a yes man and he only had the courage to nod his head. How could an ordinary mortal withstand the aura that Fu Yun displayed? It was already very good that he didn't piss his pants in terror. In 100 Ridge City the stars were dim. On the third day after receiving the news, the Imperial Army's 30,000 cavalrymen arrived at the city. The army needed supplies to advance and 100 Ridge City was one of them. The news of the Blackstone Empire attacking the Mingshan province had already spread, and the citizens of 100 Ridge City felt insecure. However, when Feng Jixing's army arrived, the citizens finally calmed down. Feng Jixing was a famous general of the empire, and his reputation was second only to Lin Muyu. In the hearts of the citizens of the empire he was like a god. The warhorse neighed as Feng Jixing rode at the front, directly entering 100 Ridge City. The citizens lined the streets on both sides to welcome him. When will Su Jiantao's troops arrive? Feng Jixing asked. At the side, Luo Yu cupped her fists and said respectfully, 1 day later. Su Jiantao only has 10,000 cavalrymen under him, so he will lead the cavalrymen and infantry to protect the supply wagons and equipment. It is estimated that he will bring a total of 20 deicide cannons, 300 magic crystal cannons, and close to 20,000 artillery shells. Su Jiantao, that bastard. The corners of Feng Jixing's mouth curled up. You indeed knows how to make good use of people. This Su Jiantao is steady in his conduct, unlike Zhang Wei who is impatient and rash. He can indeed be considered a general who can take charge of an entire area. However, it seems that it will be a little too late for him to arrive. I'm afraid that Xiangyu won't be able to withstand Lu Yan's offensive. If Shangyang City is breached, then the situation in Lingnan will be on the verge of collapse. Zhang Wei grinned. I think that commander is worrying too much. Xiangyu isn't that weak and Lu Yan isn't that powerful. What's more, Shangyang City has several deicide cannons and over 100 magic crystal cannons. I don't believe that Xiangyu's troops will be so easily crushed. Moreover, Shangyang City is sturdy and has ample resources. It won't be a problem for them to hold out for a month. That's true, but if something unexpected happens, how will we deal with it? Feng Jixing looked southward, his eyes filled with worry. Luo Yu coughed and said, Commander, are you worried that Xianxia will rebel? Feng Jixing smiled faintly. I don't know what I'm worried about either. As for Xianxia, his loyalty to Her Highness Yin is still trustworthy. However, it's hard to say whether a person can maintain his faith in a difficult situation. If we delay, I'm afraid that we will disappoint Xianxia. Therefore, the earlier we arrive at Xiangyang City, the better. Then what do you plan to do, Commander? Order the army to rest here for a day. The day after tomorrow, when Su Jiantao's troops arrive, they will immediately bring his cavalry to reinforce Xiangyang City. Then, Luo Yu's expression was a little worried as she said, What about the National Army? By this time tomorrow, the front of the National Army might have already arrived. Are we going to hand 100 Ridge City over to the National Army? Bring the National Army with you. Yes. The next day, Su Jiantao led an army of 50,000 troops to Bailing City and joined forces with Feng Jixing. Together with the National Army's tens of thousands of troops, they headed for Xiangyang City together. At this time, the situation outside Xiangyang City was already tense. The sun was high up in the sky and it was almost noon. The Iha country's army of 100,000 was in formation outside the city. On the city wall, Xianxia held his bloodthirsty spear and looked coldly into the distance. There was a rider galloping towards them, holding the flag of the Iha country. He seemed to be a negotiator. Don't shoot. Let him come to the city wall, Xianxia said faintly. A group of archers lowered their bows. Below the city wall, the general holding the flag of the Iha country had a pockmarked face. He was about 30 years old and wore the title of captaincy. He looked at the city wall from afar and shouted, Where is Duke Yu? Xianxia leaped up and stood proudly in the air. I'm here. The pockmarked face laughed loudly. Duke Yu, do you still remember me, Lu Yang? Cousin Lu Zhao Lu Yang. I remember you. Duke Yu indeed has a good memory. Lu Yang laughed. This time, Commander Qin Yi led 100,000 troops to form an alliance with the Blackstone Empire to recover the lost land in Lingnan. Wherever the army passed, it was like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. Duke Yu is a smart man. Don't be like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. You can also gain the reputation of a marquis. What do you think, Duke Yu? Xianxia laughed loudly. The remnants of the Iha country are like stray dogs. Now they are being held hostage by the bandits of the Blackstone Empire. Please go back and tell Qin Yi that the only reason the Iha country has been defeated again and again for the past 10 years is that it does not have a true backbone. Your entire country is a bunch of spineless trash. If you had half the tenacity and bravery of the Qin Empire, would you have fallen to such a state? You. Lu Yang was furious. He pointed his spear at Xianxia and said, Are you really going to put up a stubborn resistance? Xianxia smiled faintly. If the Iha country wants to attack the city, then attack. What's with all this nonsense? Lu Yang, you are Lu Zhao's cousin. Although you are not as powerful as Lu Zhao, your ability to bend your knees is not inferior to Lu Zhao's. Fine, just you wait. Lu Yang left with a red face. On the city wall, the old general Lu Yongchang frowned. Duke Yu, why did you provoke Lu Yang? Once this kind of villain goes crazy and bites people, it will be terrible. Xiangyu's eyes were cold. He suddenly looked up at the sky and sighed. I need to give the world an explanation. I need to give an explanation to the ancestors of the Xiang family. What explanation? Xiangyu said faintly. For so many years there have been rumors in the empire that I colluded with Qin Yi and the Iha country. They say that I, Xiangyu, am not a subject of the Qin family. Now is a great opportunity. Even if I have to bleed dry, I will prove to the world that the word betrayal has never been in the Xiang family's teachings. Lu Yongchang was speechless. Perhaps Xiangyu was right. They had to face the Iha country. A bloody battle was coming. Below the city the war drums rumbled. The Iha country's formation began to change. Large-scale siege chariots and scaling ladders appeared among the crowd. They approached the city under the protection of the heavy shield bearers. Lu Yongchang raised his arm. Aim the magic crystal cannons. Once they are within range, fire immediately. But remember, don't waste any cannonball. Fire one every 15 minutes. Just delay the Iha country's attack. There is no need for us to waste time with the Iha country. The real enemy is behind them. Boom, boom, boom. Mushroom clouds rose from the ground outside the city. The improved magic crystal cannons were even more powerful. The difference in equipment between the two sides was too great. The Iha country did not even have a single heavy cannon. How could they be a match? In the blink of an eye, they had already suffered heavy losses. Many soldiers even lost their will to fight and began to retreat. Don't retreat. Attack with me. Lu Yong raised his long saber and shouted loudly. But it seemed to be meaningless. A large number of Iha country soldiers still retreated. They were already scared out of their wits by the power of the magic crystal cannons. Qin Yi and Qin Huan stood on the general's platform in silence. Right at this moment there was chaos in the rear. A group of sea and mountain army soldiers on warhorses had arrived. Lu Yen held his long sword and shouted, "Qin Yi, where is your law enforcement team? Why aren't you enforcing the law immediately when there are deserters?" Qin Yi said shakily, "Commander Lu Yen, the enemy's cannons are too powerful. We also— What nonsense are you spouting?" Lu Yen roared. "Orders must be strictly enforced. Deserters must be severely punished. Men, come with me and kill them. Behead anyone who turns back." Hundreds of Blackstone Empire cavalry raised their sabers and charged over. Without any explanation they began to kill the Iha country soldiers. "Bastard!" On the general's platform, Captain Lin Sun unsheathed his sword and roared, "Lu Yen is too much. I can't take it anymore. I'd rather fight to the death with the Blackstone Empire than suffer this humiliation." In the distance, Lu Yen raised his eyebrows and said, "Yo, it's rare for the Iha country to have a general with backbone. Come, I'll wait for you to kill me." Qin Huan hurriedly shouted, "Lin Sun, are you crazy? You're a soldier. How can you go against your superiors without orders? Retreat immediately." Lin Sun gritted his teeth but didn't retreat. "Men, disarm and drag him down." Qin Yi said indifferently. "Commander." Lin Sun's eyes were filled with tears. "We've been bullied to this extent. Do we still have to swallow this humiliation?" "Drag him down." Qin Yi's gaze was indifferent. "Without my orders, Lin Sun cannot be reinstated." "Humph, a bunch of cowards." Lu Yen smiled fiercely and sheathed his blood-stained sword. He said, "Attack the city. Kill anyone who dares to fight.